Tim, I think you're muted.
Oh.
No, I hear you.
Okay. I just plugged in a mic, like as you said that.
Aha.
What up, man?
Ethan says, finally an after party for the PBK stream.
I missed it.
It was okay. It wasn't one of the greatest streams. I was hoping Sam would come on here. Oh, is that your icon corner?
Oh, yeah, it is. I didn't intend to set it up that way. I'm trying to get this computer working.
No, you should set it up that way. So give us a tour of your icons.
Sure. Okay. I got my laptop here, so let's see if I can do this. I'm going to unplug my mic. We'll see what happens here. Hang on. All right. Can you still hear me? Okay, cool. Let's see here. They've got Moises, Moishe, St. Burkhard. St. Burkhard is from the 9th century.
And that's where your last name comes from?
Yeah, Burkhard is a common name in Germany. So this is St. Burkhard. He's not generally venerated among the Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, because he was a Western saint.
Okay.
But we commissioned this. It was painted by the nuns at a monastery in Fresno that my brother is near to, and my parents live near. And so they painted that icon. We have St. John Maximovich of Shanghai and San Francisco.
Okay.
Look him up. We have the holy new elders of the Holy Mountain, Mount Athos. Father Joseph, St. Paisios, St. Porphyrios, St. Nikiforos, St. Iacobos, Antimos, Savas, and that's Porphyrios. Who's this? Amphilochios. So those are guys from Mount Athos. You familiar with the Mount Athos?
I have heard of it, yes.
And then we have Mary, Theotokos, Jesus, and this is St. Anna. You know who St. Anna is?
Is that John the Baptist's mother, or
that would be Elizabeth? That was Elizabeth. So Anna
or Mary's mother?
Correct. Right. So there's Mary. Yeah. Mary and Anna. So our parish is our church is St. Anna Church. So that's why we
Santa Anna?
Saint Anna. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where the word Santa Anna comes from.
Yeah, for sure.
Hello, John.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
You knew it.
Of course I know it. I'm Persian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I grew up like when I went to a Jewish school in Iran, so we had mandatory Islam classes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm actually a practicing Muslim.
Really? Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of Muslim?
Sunni.
What kind of Muslim? Do you have a mazhab and aqidah?
What do you mean? You probably know more. Honestly, you had to study it, so I read the Quran, but I'm not like familiar with all the hadiths and all that stuff.
No. But are you Hanafi, Hanbali? None of this stuff.
I'm a Western convert, so that stuff is kind of.
You are a very.
I don't know the intricacies. I just know that there's a Sunni and a Shia.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said my Shahada in a Sunni mosque.
Okay, and do you go to that mosque on a regular basis?
I did before COVID.
You did before COVID. How long before COVID did you take your Shahada?
I took my Shahada January 2020. So it was like 3 months. I did go a little bit during COVID, and then it just got weird. And I don't know. See, my habits it was just, especially in Canada, rules were pretty strict for a while. So my habits kind of changed. So trying to get back into the swing of things. So, but I am fasting now.
It's Ramadan. It is Ramadan.
Yeah.
For a few more days. And
till the 21st.
Are you still? You're at least going to go to mosque for Eid, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, at least for Eid. Once a year, you gotta go.
Gotta go. I gotta also play the Zakat too.
That's a good idea. Although I would be very careful where you pay your zakat.
Okay, good to know.
Yes. So that's interesting. That's interesting. So how did you grow up? How'd you grow up? I guess.
Secular.
Okay. So no Christianity, nothing like that.
Like culturally Christian, I guess you could say, but no Christian
Okay.
influence. Yeah.
So are there any like Muslim YouTube channels you follow or?
Yeah, there's actually one. It's called Islam for Europeans.
Huh. I'm not aware of that one.
Yeah, it's a pretty fringe channel. There was a couple that I did follow. Forget their names. I don't know. One of my YouTube channels got struck down, so I lost all my subscribers. So.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Islam for Europeans.
Yeah.
I'm seeing if I recognize any of the faces on here. It looks like just one guy.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small channel.
Yeah. He just talks about like the challenges of Western converts in the West and the backlash they face from family and coworkers and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I would be very careful about Muslim YouTube. It is very, very, very heavily seeded by all sorts of interests, including, for example, CIA, Mossad, MI5, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very careful. Unfortunately, Khalil from EA Dawa is in prison. I would caution people before they prejudge that situation. But he, I was a fan of his, and Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, is a very smart guy. Again, I mean, obviously, I'm not a Muslim, and I think anyone who is involved, especially in Islam from the West, and doesn't have a solid grounding, has to be much more careful than I think a lot of people are about what's going on, because without a solid grounding in Islam's history and traditions, it is very easy for people in the West to completely reframe Islam into something it is not. It becomes a sort of Protestantism.
Okay.
And that's a really, really bad idea. You will have, let me put it this way. If you are serious about Islam, then you should make a Hajj, and I highly recommend making the Hajj, and earlier rather than later, and that should give you a much clearer vision of what Islam actually is than trying to peer at it through Western eyes from a Western country.
Yeah. That's fair. That's a fair criticism. There's always different expressions of Islam, and each country has its own characteristics, but I guess the fundamental tenets is the following of the of the five pillars, and
Hajj
also that
Hajj is
Jesus
one
is
of
not
them.
a son of God.
Well, okay. Go on Hajj. I highly recommend. Look, one of the five pillars, like you said, one of the five pillars of Islam is Hajj,
Yes.
and I think one of the things that the Hajj provides you with is an opportunity to see a um, a sampling of a large number of Muslims. I mean, obviously, and you don't necessarily. I mean, yes, it's best to go during Hajj season, but if you can't go during Hajj season especially for financial reasons,
Mhm.
there's nothing that says you can't just. There's a different name for what it's called to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, and do all of the things outside Hajj season.
Mhm. Well, a lot of I know a lot of people they look at from the West, like some people they look at Islam as kind of last vestige of traditional life, whereas in the Christian liberal West, women are not. There's a lot of broken families and a lot of single parent homes, and Islam is kind of it provides a structure in providing curtailing immoral behavior,
I mean,
sexual behavior.
That's Andrew Tate's take, and frankly, um, he's a hot take. I mean, that's a hot take. I'm sorry. That's like that's just
But
not what
isn't there but there's truth to it though, right? Like over 50% of American families are single parent mother households, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's a problem, right? And like
Yeah.
it's
But
not only just the problem in that, and like
converting to
when
Islam,
single mothers are raising kids, right?
but John,
Like they're not raising productive people.
John,
Like everyone is fat, stupid, and lazy.
John,
Yeah.
like they on the PBK stream, they're like, you're saying obvious things. These are not controversial things.
Okay.
You're saying
But
obvious.
I'm just saying like.
But
I'm just saying that obviously
Islam
that Christianity has failed in upholding the moral values.
as has Islam completely failed in upholding its moral values.
Why are people so attracted to Islam and the traditional family structure?
Oh, people in the West, because they don't know Islam.
Know about what?
That's why they don't understand Islam. They know almost nothing about Islam. They have this view of Islam, which has become popular on the internet.
Yeah.
And then if they are serious, they will actually go and encounter Islam and find out that it's nothing like what this silly internet.
Well, you can make Islam. You can have as long as you follow the pillars, you can make it with your own characteristics, your own cultural practices, right? As long as it's not haram.
So there you go. Now we've established what mazhab you are. You are a Protestant Muslim.
Everything you've said, Jacob, so far applies equally to the Orthobros.
Yeah, that is very true. This is very true. Michael, what's your take on the Orthobro leaker?
I didn't know he was an Orthobro. That's pretty funny. I am here for just very fast to say hi. Yes. I have to run to an Orthodox service right now for our Good Friday. I'm just saying hi to Jacob.
6 hours.
Yeah. I was already in it for like 2.5 this morning, and then there's more to
Me too.
So no, just saying hi. Thanks for playing around on Twitter, and I hope you all have a great day.
Be well. Yeah. So I actually Pajot.
Is it possible you know too much? Because I know sometimes an analysis through paralysis does exist.
There's no paralysis here. I am, and frankly, I am advocating for you to go to your mosque more often than you do, and for you to go on
Right.
your Hajj. Now,
Right.
notice I am not trying to dissuade you from Islam at all.
Okay, but you're kind of being like, well, you're a Protestant, so you're an
You
infidel
are.
of the faith.
Well, I didn't say you're an infidel. I said you're a mazhab, and you really should look up this word mazhab,
Okay.
because there are particular mazhabs, and if you want to take what I would say is a safe mazhab, which is a mazhab which is actually within the mainstream and reasonable, I highly recommend actually listening to the Imam al-Azhar and to what the Islam as it is taught from Al-Azhar, which is a university it's the oldest Muslim university. It's possibly the oldest university in the world. In Egypt, and the Imam al-Azhar is as close as Islam has to something vaguely resembling a pope. But so I'm not trying to dissuade you from Islam at all. In fact, I would be more than happy if all the Christians converted to Islam. I would, because at least they would no longer be worshiping idols.
Yes, that's basically why I did it. Yeah.
But from everything you've told me, it sounds like you are a member of this
Ummah.
Church of Islam that's sprouted up on the internet. That is
Make it real life.
It's beyond make it real life. Actually see. So like this glass of water, you can see it here. You can't taste it.
Is it real? No, I'm just kidding.
It is real, but you can't taste it. And until you taste it, you have no idea. Like you can't tell what wet is by looking at this.
Okay.
Right? And so in a similar way, by looking at Islam through the internet.
Well, fuck it. I'll be the Protestant of Islam. Fuck it. I'll do it.
Well, first thing you might want to do as a Muslim, not swear so much.
I'm sorry.
It's quite all right, but we have a very
Christian I know.
Audience,
I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect.
None of us are perfect, and frankly, I have more than once or twice. Also, said things I shouldn't. In fact, I'm kind of famous for that. But yeah.
What are your criticism of Islam as a religion?
Criticisms of Islam as a religion.
I'm new to this channel, so you can,
Judaism very much believes that Islam is an acceptable religion for Gentiles. If Muslims actually hold up the tenets of their religion, as far as Judaism is concerned, that's perfect. And that's why I was supportive of Khalil, for example, or I am very supportive of people who actually get involved in Islam. The problem with Islam is the Muslims, and that's just like the problem with Judaism is the Jews, and the problem with Christianity is the Christians, because human beings fail to hold up the values of their religion, and that's just something that's just true of human beings. So theoretically, Islam, I have zero criticisms of Islam. I have criticisms of Christianity, but I have criticisms of a lot of things. But
would you describe yourself as a Noahide?
I'm Jewish, so I can't be considered a Noahide because I am Jewish. I am bound by the covenant at Sinai, which includes the covenant of Noah. So everything, I mean, I am bound by the covenant of Noah. But when we talk about the Noahides online, we generally are talking about Gentiles who believe in Orthodox Judaism. And while I actually think it's okay to refer to them as Jews outside of a Jewish context, my Judaism has a caste system, and my caste would be Israel, whereas a Gentile Ben Noah would be I guess you could call them Goy nation. And that's the non-pejorative. So the word Goy has come up, the denotation is not pejorative. The connotation has become pejorative, unfortunately. But that's not how it's used. Israel is called a Goy in the Bible.
Right. Yeah, because the Bible is anti-Semitic because it frowns upon those who calls themselves Jews in the flesh and not Jews of the spirit. From my understanding. Maybe you have a
Okay,
different
so now you're talking about the Christian Bible. You're not talking about my Bible. But
sorry, you're talking about the Torah.
yeah, the
Oh,
Tanakh.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, there is definitely things that I would say are anti-Semitic in the Christian Bible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The anti-Semitic, it's kind of a catch-all term, right? Like there is Semitic peoples who are non-Jewish as well.
No. Okay, so that's a bad use of the word Semitic, anti-Semitic. The word anti-Semitism was a term that was coined in Germany about 150 years ago by people who called themselves anti-Semites because they were opposed to Jews. So when we use the term anti-Semite, we're actually referring to a particular group that were advocates for what they themselves called anti-Semitism, which is hatred of Jews. So that's why when we say anti-Semitic, you can't just take a word apart and say, oh, it refers to Semites, as in also refers to Arabs. That's not where the word comes from.
Are you saying it's its own word basically with the connection there? Okay.
I actually, that's the reason why when I write anti-Semitic, I, like he wrote it here, I don't put the dash in. It actually comes from the German word. Yeah.
It's German. Okay, I'll have to do some research on it. But
yeah, so the anti-Semites were scientific Darwinists who believed that Jews were racially inferior, and they created this, what they thought of as a scientific term to explain their anti-Semitism, which was their hatred of Jews.
So you're saying it wasn't made by like a think tank of how could I say, Zionist occupied government or anything like that?
No, I mean,
or the CIA or anything like that?
Yeah, no. The word anti-Semite is hundreds of years old. Now, sometimes, okay. So for example, when I was using it right now, so you're right when we say catch-all term, because when I was using it right now, I was referring to the Bible, like the Christian Bible, which is thousands of years older than actual anti-Semitism, right?
Right.
But that's because the anti-Semitic movement has certain characteristics. So the proper term to refer to Christian anti-Semitism before, I would say, around the Inquisition, around when modernism started becoming big, and what happened in the Inquisition, they did start to racialize things in ways that didn't exist before. But so the proper term before then is really anti-Judaism, but this is a level of nuance. I mean, when you're talking to people, I can get into the details. I have a 2-hour video on anti-Semitism. It's actually one of the more popular videos on my channel.
Mhm.
And you're more than welcome to get into the details of anti-Semitism, as opposed to anti-Zionism, as opposed to anti-Judaism, as opposed to supersessionism. These are different terms, but when we use the term anti-Semitic, what we're basically referring to is hatred of Jews.
Okay. What does Tim do? He looks like he's on the computer right now. It looks like he's like, "Hey, what's this guy up to?" Like, I don't know, man. Sorry, you come across as kind of Fed vibes. So maybe just explain what you do. It's like, what is this guy doing talking about anti-Semitism? I bet he's up to something. What do you do for a living, Tim?
Taking some notes here. No,
okay.
I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm playing with a computer right now.
Okay.
This hand-me-down computer to work.
It's Good Friday, so he's doing what every good Eastern Orthodox Christian does on Good Friday, which is make computers.
Try to still install.
Wasn't that last week?
Computer. No, that last week was Western, old calendar Eastern. Our new calendar Easter. We're on the old calendar, so we have Easter this week.
Well, you're not part of the true Orthodox Church, are you?
Oh boy.
You're not an old calendarist, you're a new old calendarist.
No. Not regular ones.
Is the Quran anti-Semitic? The Quran itself is not
It actually says to read the Torah.
Yeah, it does. The Quran itself. And actually, I mean, looking into the Quran much more recently, I am actually much more convinced of the possibility of, wow, we got a Sam. I'm much more convinced of the possibility that the Quran originated as an Aramaic document from Jewish communities. I am a big fan of Robert Eisenman and the idea, which most Muslims would disagree with, that in fact Islam is the vestige of Jewish Christianity.
I have a lot of sympathy for that idea too. I'm not an Islamic scholar by any means, and I don't even deny that there was someone named Muhammad who was somehow the source in one way or another of the Quran.
It's really hard. It's really hard. I am leaning towards the idea that there was that
a Muhammad mythicism.
Yeah. I've definitely become kind of a Muhammad mythicist, just because we have no record of the name before Islam, and it's not an Arabic word. It's a Hebrew word.
Muhammad or the
Muhammad, means beloved in Hebrew.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that in Arabic. That's the weird part.
That is a weird thing. I mean, I bet that there was sort of a blurry spectrum of Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic in sort of that Jordan region at the time.
So this is exactly what I was looking at. The thing is, Semitic languages have 3-letter roots, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the 3-letter root, Hamad, Het Mem Daled, is a clear one in all of the languages, right? And I just supposed that in Arabic, Muhammad was one of the ways you conjugate that root. Except there's no conjugation in any version of Arabic which lands you on something like Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
You end up with Ahmad, right? You end up with a lot of things, but Muhammad, right, is a plain Hebrew word. It actually shows up several times in the Jewish Bible, and like Muslims are like, see, that this is the Tanakh saying like prophesying the coming of Muhammad. But the problem is, I don't understand how before the Quran started becoming popular, some mother decided to name her kid Muhammad, unless it came from the Hebrew.
Interesting. I've been surprised to learn listening to sort of lectures and stuff on the origins of Islam, and I'm remembering like, okay, a lot of these lectures is basically like listening to Bart Ehrman tell you about Christianity or something like that, and then I need to remember that with a grain of salt. But even Bart Ehrman, or an extremely skeptical secular scholar, not going full mythicist, will be like, well, actually, we do know a lot about Jesus. Compared to what we know about the origins of Islam, we know way, way more about the origins of Christianity.
Which
and
is
so
shocking.
Many more things that we can pinpoint.
Which is shocking.
Muhammad allegedly conquered some mini empire, and his, descendants, or his political entity in the generation or two, conquered something like the size of the Roman Empire, and Jesus did nothing of the sort.
And it's 600 years after, right? So like the fact we don't actually have, like, it's amazing. The lack of archaeological evidence of Muhammad is shocking and weird. Some people blame.
Well,
it
what
on
are you guys' thoughts about
iconoclasm.
Ishmael and Isaac?
What about
that is an interesting thing that I wonder, because I think a lot of Islam can be like, okay, I could see how you could get this mix of theological ingredients from Judaism and Christianity and Jewish Christianity.
Yes.
That was available and existent in the eastern fringe or the borderlands between Persia and Rome, or Byzantium at the time. I can see how most of those ingredients are around. But one thing that is a little bit weird is the Ishmael thing. What Jew of any self-respect would say that it was Ishmael that was the, chosen son as opposed to Isaac?
But the Quran doesn't really say that. It seems like it's very similar to what. This is part of the thing. So all the places where Paul makes the Hagar and Ishmael thing. So my theory is that, in fact, the Jewish Christians really did have this idea of, there's Israel, right? There's the children of Jacob, and then their Judaism as it applies to Ishmaelites is also a thing, which it is, right? Noahide or Acts 15. And that's why I think you plainly get so it's not like the Quran itself says that Ishmael was the one that was at the Acacia.
Was at the non-sacrifice.
That's a much later Muslim interpretation.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I just always took their word on that one.
No.
I have maybe a perspective. Like, I've actually read like the story of. I actually went to my imam. I'm just like, the Christians talk about Ishmael and Isaac. Do you have like literature on this? He's like, yeah. So I did actually read some Islamic history on Ishmael, and basically when Ishmael was banished from Abraham, because God told him to do that. He was banished with Hagar, right?
Yeah.
The other
his mother,
mistress he had and so they were banished, and they were about to die of thirst. And then Ishmael called out to the gods, God, if you really exist, please show yourself now, or something to that phrase. And he started digging in the sand. And then when he dug in the sand, this water came up, and it was like a milk kind of water. And that's where they decided to start to build Mecca. But Islam didn't start from that, but this is how they kind of build Mecca, and they started like growing food because they found a water source basically. And then you had the Arab pagans that would go there, the pilgrims that go there, and they would have a whole bunch of idols at Mecca. And then that's when you had Muhammad come in and tell them that you shouldn't worship idols and all that, all that stuff. But that's basically the kind of the, I guess you could say, the history of how Islam came to be. I guess you can kind of trace it from an Islamic point of view. Maybe you guys have a different point of view, but that's my point of view anyway.
I think the other interesting aspect of that is that in the Aramaic speaking Christians that Muhammad may have encountered, an example that I'm aware of is like Ephraim the Syrian, that there were many, like Arianism, what happened was popular, I guess, or rampant, I suppose, among them. But there were many Christians that were Aramaic speaking, which is, as I understand, this related to Hebrew, right, Jacob?
Yeah, it's very close. Aramaic, Arabic, and Hebrew are almost mutually intelligible,
especially back then.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's true that when the empire sort of officially became Trinitarian over the course of the late 4th and early 5th centuries and started cracking down on heresy, that it pushed heresy outside of the Roman Empire. And the Arians went north and became the Germanic barbarians. And the Arian church actually lasted until like the 800s or something like that as a church that was basically the church of the Gothic barbarians. But that was mostly in Germany and that sort of place. But a lot of the other ones were pushed east, like Nestorianism was the official church religion of the Persian church. And then all sorts of either Jewish Christian or various kinds of Unitarian Christian movements were pushed outside the fringe of the empire. And so if you were a Arabic tradesman going between like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Syria or something like that, you would have been very familiar with a lot of those kinds of Christianities. Those would have been the common ones. And like clearly it's aware of Trinitarianism. The Quran has some clear anti-Trinitarian, anti-Christian Trinitarian passages in it.
Yeah.
But I still think that it probably was some weird agglomeration of a bunch of those ingredients, and maybe it didn't get its full like Muslim identity for a while, and then maybe Muhammad was invented, or maybe just incredibly recast as or something like that.
So you have to, I think, take into consideration the full-formed nature of the Quran as a text. It's not, it is, I mean, one of the things that Muslims will say is this is not a text that a single man could have written by himself, certainly not an illiterate man, like Muhammad is believed to have been. And this is actually their linguistic miracle by which they
nothing like turning a weakness into a strength.
Well, but the fact is that when you look at the Quran, it is actually a kind of full-formed text, and that's why I think, and I'm no expert on the Quran, I think the idea that this was a text that was circulating among Christians in the area and was adopted by people as their kind of Bible, and it refers to this beloved Muhammad, which became their prophet, and then they retro-constructed it, makes a lot more sense than, for example, Christian mythicism.
Like if someone took all of the various like Enochic stuff, bound it into a single work, and talked about how instead of Enoch being this pre-flood character, like he was a guy from like a century ago who had done all of these sorts of things, when it was sort of a crowdsourced, I don't know, scripture agglomeration or something like that.
I don't know how many times the Quran itself refers to Muhammad, but I could definitely see, like, if the Quran spoke about a beloved Muhammad, right, and they took this as a name because it's not an Arabic word.
It could have just been a title, not a name.
Yes.
Or yeah, like a descriptor. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And then what happens is that suddenly they reconstruct, oh, Muhammad was this guy who lived 100 years ago, and this was, that's, I mean, this is definitely not what most Muslims, this is offensive to most Muslims, but it is Islamic mythicism in ways that, I think any historian who actually believes in it, and there are indications that some historians believe in it and just don't want to talk about it.
Well, for obvious reasons.
Whereas I find it fascinating that Islam recognizes all of the Abrahamic prophets, including Jesus. It's kind of like the one that in history is where all the Abrahamic faiths can actually, when there's a Muslim majority society, all the Abrahamic faiths can actually coexist with each other.
And I think it's pretty clear some of the Christian origins of the Quran. I mean, they believe in the virgin birth. Like the Quran has even nicer things to say about Mary than the New Testament does. And so you have like a higher Mariology in the Quran than you do in the Gospels.
And if Muhammad actually refers to James, that makes perfect sense with the story that Robert Eisenman wants to tell.
And so it's almost like it's some of those proto-evangelion of James, like sort of that collection of more Arabic Eastern or Aramaic Eastern pseudo-epigrapha from the Christian East. And it's sort of kind of from that environment. Some of those things make sense. And they even believe that Jesus will come back, right? Like that guy who was on the channel the other day was like, Jesus came back in the form of this guy from like 150 years ago. It's like, okay, interesting. But, they're still waiting for Jesus to come back. So it's weird to me how exactly they make Muhammad more important than Jesus. And it doesn't really quite
it's because
work.
I can answer this. So it's because of they don't say Muhammad is superior to Jesus. What they actually say is that because you can trace the text back to the divine source of when allegedly, of course, the elders wrote in camel bones and leaves of what Muhammad was transcribing to them, in that they could trace all that back. Of course, there is some. You do lose a little bit of meaning when you translate from Arabic to English. So you do lose a little bit of that. But in a general sense, it hasn't been heavily edited like the Bible, where you had the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. So it's really hard. And as well, these transcripts from the Old Testament, that from like Paul or anything like that, they're 100 years after Jesus' death. So in a way, because like when you have word of mouth, right? Like when you could tell, like I could tell you something, right? The grass is, I could tell you something, and then once it goes through Tim and it once it goes through Jacob will have a different version than what I told you, right? Because we interpret things differently. But when you write it down, it's clear.
Well,
in a general sense, it's you have the message,
Paul,
right? You have a clear message.
No, but John, we have the writings of Paul, which is very, very close to when Jesus is, like, Paul was a contemporary of Jesus, and the only things we have of Muhammad are from hundreds of years later.
And it's almost one of those things where Christianity is a little bit easier to poke holes in because it's well documented. Whereas Islam's almost harder to poke holes in because it's not well documented. Like we can say, well, James and Paul seem to have gotten in disagreements, but we know that because Paul's like, I went to Jerusalem and I had a disagreement with Peter and James, and so it's one of those things where Christianity's own documentation of itself is what gives some of these skeptics some elbow room, but Islam doesn't even have that, because there's just this vacuum of documentation from a long period of time.
So the word Muhammad shows up 4 times, and there's a 5th one, Ahmed, in the, according to this Wikipedia page, in the entirety of the Quran. Whereas throughout the Quran, Moses is referred to even more than Jesus, and he's called Kalimullah, which is the one who saw God face to face, and Jesus is referred to more, and so I really think
it's almost some sort of Jewish Christian Aramaic pseudo canon that sort of maybe got edited or revised or agglomerated and attributed to a guy who may have existed or kind of is somewhere in between the lands of fiction and history.
Yeah, Paul Vanderklay says Paul wrote it in the 50s and 60s, which is only 20 years after the crucifixion and resurrection.
Okay. All right, I got maybe some controversy there with the timekeeping, in that the AD calendar, the Anno Domini calendar, was only implemented by the Catholic Church in 522 AD, but we can't necessarily, with everything like in history was actually Anno Mini when Jesus was alive, and it would just be, oh shit, you know what? I just had a realization. The Anno Domini calendar was made in 522 AD or around that time by the Catholic Church, and then Muhammad was made just right after. Oh, that's interesting. So was it? I don't know. I just came to that realization. So basically, the timekeeping method wasn't like when Jesus was alive. It wasn't Anno Domini. It was Anno Mini. So we're technically in the year, I think, 5,900 and I don't know something, but so I actually believe in early creationists, the young Earth creationists, that the Earth is 6,000 years. That's actually more rational because there's only 6,000 years of archaeological evidence of human documentation, right? So
Paul Vanderklay says unbelieving historians commonly place Jesus' birth between 4 and 6 BC. I actually place it around 100 BC.
So how exactly do you make that work?
So there is a story in the Talmud of a Jesus who was a student of a particular rabbi, and it's the only story in the Talmud of Jesus which seems that I believe seems to be independent of Christian history, and so I believe there's several people who got brought together.
But the documentation is so early to make that really difficult, I feel like. I mean, mythicism, but
it depends. Are you saying that do you agree with my belief that multiple people were conglomerated together to make Jesus as we have them? I don't disagree that James was James existed and was called the brother of Jesus, but I actually don't think the Christians went so far off when they said James, the brother of Jesus, was like a sort of cousin type thing, because I believe there was a dynasty and there was this community, but I think, Jesus as a gestalt of several people, I think isn't isn't
Well, you see,
exactly
now
the same
you're
thing
ma-
as
Well, I mean,
Now you're
Jesus
making
is an English social construct, yes, because he was called something different back then, like
yeah, I
Yeshua,
mean,
or
yeah,
you know what I
Yeshua or
mean?
something. But
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
you're not really understanding what we're saying, John. Go ahead, Sam.
but I still feel like, well, you're undercutting my Mohammed mythicism by because I feel like I'm going to cut a very different tack with Jesus. I mean, I don't need to argue this too much. I feel like the person Jesus is very well situated in history in a way that makes a lot of sense, and that the New Testament makes very clear was a single individual born in the first decade BC and crucified somewhere around 30 or 33 or something like that. I think all of those things.
You're such a fundamentalist, Sam.
I am a fundamentalist, and it's my fundamentalism that
Jacob,
makes me
I got a
Unitarian.
question for you. Have you ever read anything that said Anno Mini, like AM year Anno Mini?
No.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I actually read some documentations about
really,
Anno Mini as opposed to Anno Domini, like AD.
Okay,
Hmm.
John, you're not
Yeah.
really contributing to this conversation very much.
No,
and-
so this is how I converse. So that's what I do.
Yeah, but we're having a conversation. Maybe come back later. Okay, so we could talk Moses mythicism now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Moses is a lot harder to document than Jesus. I'm not very well informed, or don't have a lot of thoughts on dating the Exodus. I feel like the Exodus makes sense in the light of like the Bronze Age collapse. So I sort of prefer a 1200-ish BC Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Egyptian Empire is severely weakened. There's a power vacuum in the Levant, and that's sort of the time frame, because they encounter Philistines as soon as we get there, and we actually know quite a bit about the Philistines. The Philistines were Indo-European white-skinned Greek sailors who harassed the Egyptian Empire so thoroughly that the Egyptian Empire basically had to give them some of their territory in exchange for them, leaving the Nile River Valley alone.
Okay,
and so they gave them Gaza. And so when the Israelites are getting there, there's these big, tall, basically Vikings that are speaking some sort of Proto-Greek. And that only makes sense if they're getting there after they're already there, which is sometime around the Bronze Age collapse in 1200 BC.
Okay, so how did you? I'm sure you didn't listen to all my conversations about this stuff with Chezi, but did you at least listen to the clip that Paul clipped of our conversation? So we've been having a conversation about like how literally you can take the Bible in Judaism,
mm-hmm.
and how figuratively. And one of the things that I've been complaining about is that in Orthodox Judaism, we have started importing fundamentalist Christian ideas of how literal you should be with the Bible, partially in rejection of neo-agey metaphorical, removal, right? And so I think all three of us, Yosef, Chezi, and I, are very critical of elements within Orthodox Judaism that take things too literally. And to some extent, Rabbi Mullet, who sometimes does get involved in this corner, he defends a sort of literalism which I think goes too far within Judaism. So, for example, Genesis 1:2. Was there water like this water before God created light? And I would say anybody who says there was actual water in Genesis 1:2 is being completely heretical to Judaism. Like, is denying fundamental ethics of Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that a lot of people have been trying to that's something a lot of people have been trying to if Tyler, let me just answer Tyler. A lot of people have, we've been struggling with within Judaism because Orthodox Judaism is trying to keep people from like becoming absolute heretics through over allegorizing things, and in that they're becoming very like, if you believe that if Moses had a GoPro on his forehead his entire life and you watched that video, you have a better understanding of the Torah than how the Torah describes it. I would say you are a heretic within Judaism.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like let's see here. What am I finding? I think that one of the things that really needs to happen for this corner of the internet, or like next wave Christianity or something, next 500-year version of Christianity, is to restore somehow the respectability of allegorical interpretation without just being like, let's see here, like most people, when they think of allegorical interpretation, they think of basically this, right? What is this? Clark-Amos United Church of Christ. We take the Bible seriously, but not always literally.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
And here's another, it seems to be, come from the United Church of Christ, which is, for people who don't know, a relatively liberal denomination. It's actually the Puritans denomination. It is the one that is directly in line with the Puritan church from, the Mayflower days, which is kind of funny. But nowadays it's a very liberal mainline interpretation. And so most people, I feel like, that are in conservative or traditional religious circles associate allegorical interpretation with attempts to dodge the brunt of clear meaning of Scripture.
Yes.
Especially on social topics that would cause discomfort in our modern world.
Exactly.
And to the extent then it's like, okay, well, since we're not going to do the allegorical thing because we don't want to dodge the uncomfortable bluntness of some parts of the Bible, we don't want to do that with the Spirit of God hovering over the waters either. And that sort of thing. And so I feel like some attempt needs to be done. And Pajot is a very interesting version of this, of how to, and Peterson too, of how to make allegorical interpretation great again without it just being like, well, actually we can believe whatever we want and we can just totally buffet style select the parts of the Bible we like and allegorize away the parts we don't like.
So my concern is if you take things literally, which is really what the LDS, and I have to say a lot of Christians do.
Amen. No beef from me on that.
And they start talking about the face of God and the hand of God and the foot of God, and that's why Jesus is God. I think that's where I think it becomes so clearly heretical, right? That we have to, and Judaism has for thousands of years very clearly drawn this line. I mean, I keep on pointing people to Rashi on Genesis 1:1, where it is one of the longest Rashi comments in the entirety of the Bible.
Remind me who Rashi is.
So Rashi was a rabbi around 1,000 years ago who wrote the canonical commentary on the Bible in Judaism. So when children start learning the Bible, they learn Chumash Rashi. They learn the 5 books of Moses with Rashi. That is, and Chumash Rashi in Judaism literally means ABCs. It does.
Uh-huh.
It literally means ABCs.
So he's the authoritative commentator from that.
Well,
in a lot of schools of thought.
In all of Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
to the extent where recently there was a big kerfuffle because one of the big Jewish printing publishing companies published an English explanation of the Torah, and they cited people who disagree with Rashi in places, and an actual excommunication ban came out against this book for the crime of disagreeing with Rashi. And this I obviously disagree with, and many prominent rabbis disagree with, but an excommunication ban is a very rare thing in Judaism. And it happened because they were like, no, you can't disagree with Rashi. Now, the funny thing is, a lot of those exact same people, and this is what I call the Protestantization of Judaism, is a lot of those same people, this Rashi that I keep on pointing everyone to, where he says, no, you cannot take the order of creation in Genesis 1 literally. It does not teach us what the order of creation is, and it is heretical to say that this is a literal account of how creation took place. And that's why I make the water analogy, because it is very clear throughout Judaism that if you believe that physical water, like water in this glass, was present before God said, let there be light, you have completely destroyed Judaism. Like, it is complete heresy.
Yeah, and so I feel like Origin of Alexandria was really helpful for me on this, in terms of it not just being sort of a Peugeot or a Peterson sort of thing. And Origin has this really interesting idea in his On First Principles book. He gets that. So when Jesus does the turning the water into wine, there are, I forget exactly, it says something like that you put 2 gallons in some of these cisterns and 3 gallons in some of these other cisterns in the process of turning water into wine. And Origin is saying, well, there are 3 levels of interpretation. There's literal, I guess. He called it body, or the common sense, or something like that, interpretation. And then there's the soul interpretation, which is basically like moral application, like taking moral lessons from that time and applying it to your own time, is what he means by a soulful interpretation. And then spiritual interpretation, which is like getting a glimpse of highest Platonic spiritual reality through the scriptures. And he says that some scriptures have 2 layers to them and some have 3. And the layer that is sometimes present but not always present is the literal layer. In other words, there are some scriptures that have no literal meaning to them, that they are only at the soulful and spiritual level.
Sounds very Christian and Pauline to me.
Well,
reminds me of 1 Corinthians 9. Hotbed of heresy.
Well, we were talking about Hagar earlier, right? When Paul is allegorizing Hagar as being representative of the law, and Sarah as being representative of the new covenant, and the child of promise, and the child of, etc. He literally uses the word allegory while he's doing it. Like, he uses the Greek word allegory to explain the sort of interpretation that he's doing. That it's one of those things where I think that I bet that Origin and also the Apostle Paul got these sorts of ideas from Judaism of the time. And I wonder what you think of that, Jacob, in terms of there being spiritual and allegorical interpretive methods at the time in 2,000 years ago.
So we say Shivim Panim LaTorah. Every Torah verse has 70 faces, and the word 70 is not exclusive. And we talk about Pardes, which is the four levels of interpretation that every verse needs to, in fact, be understood in. And the first one is what we call pshat, which literally means straight. And there, we have a rule in the Talmud, ein hamikra yotze pshuto, that a verse cannot be translated outside of its pshat, its plain implication.
Mhm.
But that plain implication, it is absolutely wrong to say that the plain implication is, for example, that in Genesis 1, 1:2, that there's water, that God's spirit is hovering over water. Like, that's ridiculous. Hopefully people understand. And so the Talmudic
The
and
tohu
Midrashic
wabohu?
what?
The tohu wabohu?
Yeah, well, it actually says mayim. It actually says the word water, right? It says that the spirit of God was merachefet al hamayim. However you want to translate merachefet, usually hovering is how people translate it. I actually like twittering better, but not as in Twitter. I don't know what to do with this abundance of riches, because Tyler is one of the few people who very much agrees with me about Claire Kaw, and I want to talk to him about that, but I never get Sam on, and I want to discuss this as well. And
All right.
Yeah. Listen, don't let
Andrew-
me. Hey, don't let me interrupt. I only have a few minutes, anyways.
Tyler, I've never talked with you, and
No,
people
and I've
have told
always
me
wanted
that I
to,
should.
Sam. I think you're such a great
Yeah.
guy.
Well, I likewise.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I'd love to spend some more time doing that. I'm going to be driving my children to their mothers for the next 3 hours, the hour and a half on the way back. If you guys are still streaming, I'm happy to join in. Yeah, I just ran out of time. Yeah, totally. Claire Call and a number of other people. It's a pattern that we have to be able to identify and then educate ourselves on, so that we stop reacting to these problems after the fact. Yeah.
You're the first person I have who actually says exactly what I have been saying, which is there are bad actors specifically trying to destroy conversations, and Claire Kaw is an obvious manifestation of that.
Correct. Yeah. And you don't even need to posit their motivational states, right? You can just look at the outcomes. Their fruits are good enough.
This is the problem.
There you go. All right. Hey, Paul, I'd love to talk with you about this. You got some time. It has to do with the depth of your experience with the way that she involves herself in community. I mean, I could also psychoanalyze you, Paul, and talk about why it is you do or don't see the things that we see. So, but that's not very nice. So, yeah, I think there has been a significant presence of certain types of individuals that exhibit the same patterns, and I can point to their characteristics. In fact, I think that's a big part of what we do. It's just like going out into the wilderness and identifying a wild animal, saying what its behaviors are, what its characteristics look like. Hey, Paul. Awesome. Okay, so I've got 11 minutes before I got to take off. Oh, I can't hear him.
Andrew, you should go do Coptic Good Friday stuff. I'll talk to you later.
No.
Is he Coptic?
He is.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Wow.
Are we
All
sure
right,
they
well,
have the
we're-
same calendar?
We are
Anyway.
very nearly completing our Pokemon decks of religious attendees, I think. At some point, we'll have the full representation of all of the perspectives.
Father Eric needs to jump on. We haven't had a Catholic on.
Okay. Oh, wait, he hasn't been... Wait, I thought... But he streams on your platform.
Oh,
or
he streams on here. Yeah. No. I meant today. We've had a Muslim. We've had a Unitarian. We've had
Cool.
we've had...
All right. So, Tyler, who's Claire Shaw? What's she doing and what's she up to? And what's the pattern we need to recognize?
Player call. Okay. So the pattern that we need to recognize is that certain individuals will speak out of both sides of their mouth continuously. And if you just listen to them long enough, now Claire is like one of the worst ones. I mean, it's interesting because she's so intelligent and well-read about certain things, she can come across as knowledgeable about certain types of arguments, but she'll contradict herself like one sentence to the next. and it's a continuous problem. And it's not just a minor contradiction. It's not like a subtle error, right? It's a divisive error that's following what can be only described as like one of the rules of radicals for Saul Alinsky, which is something like pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Okay. And the whole point is to identify, isolate, and then demand that the total space talk about your issue. And your issue is always going to be something that divides. And like if I were to take the total amount of words that Claire Kaw has said and put them in front of you, right? Where she said them and in what communities, and then look at the implications, the things that resulted after the fact, like the way that people reacted to that. And then also, in addition, the way that that pattern replicates itself just by virtue of mimesis that happens naturally. And also because once you allow in these communities, once you allow a certain type of person in and that's visible to the public, other people like that pattern will show up, right? Because they've been granted a kind of implicit invitation. And this is what I've been noticing embedded within lots of online communities over and over and over again. And the whole point is never get to the point where you yourself as a troll are going to leave the community. You're going to stay as long as you can to draw battle lines so that you can get people to choose sides. Yeah, there you go. There's some good Claire Kaw material. Claire's been doing this for a long time, long time. She documents some of this stuff herself on her own website, at least as far back as a decade, where charmingly, lovingly is, or lovely, or I'm not sure how to verbalize that, has a transcript of herself on a call-in show at BBC suggesting to a woman with a disabled child that she should kill her son, right? Because having a disabled child is a burden on society, and why would you do that to society? It's like, and that's her stance. Her stance is that it's very, it's lifted right from the Nazi playbook. All disabled people should be killed because they're a burden to society, and that's a hot topic, right? So it tends to gather people around on sides, and then they fight about it. And that's all that she cares about. There's never a resolution. There's never a conclusion. There's never changing of any minds. It's just that, and it never stops. Yeah. So I'm not going to call anybody else that I've noticed that pattern out right now because.
So what's the difference between that and me and Jacob, who have our pet topics that we like, that we bring up, and that it can be somewhat divisive?
Okay, Sam, are you on? Look, I'll willing to answer that question, but are you seriously equating yourself with the behavior?
No, I am literally. I am the one who banned Claire from the Discord yesterday. I clicked the button happily. Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is that there is a difficult to distinguish issue here. And what I'm saying is in our attempt to recognize the Claires of the world, how do we not also filter out the Sams and the Jacobs of the world, and how do we know that difference? That's really the question that I'm trying to
No. And that's not something that I can just like say as an answer. It's something I think we have to experiment with, because we've tried in a number of the communities, we've tried different approaches, and they all have downsides, right? There's a blessing and a curse to everything. So we have to collectively realize how it is we deal with this problem. In terms of recognition, I mean, like, so there's a subtlety to the way that you demarcate types, right? It's a kind of a Sorites paradox. How different is she than you, right? So I can start enumerating all these things. And that has to do with the way that our individual capacities discern, right? Because those discernments and the subtleties are what reveal aspects which are not immediately apparent, right? So the immediately apparent is what most people are going to be basing their impressions off of. And so the more that you say, the more that doesn't make sense, the more confusion that you have in the way that you speak, the more it's possible for people to just like pick and choose. Well, I heard her say this, right? And then you kind of ignore the next thing she said. And then I heard her say this. And people who are of good nature, people who are forgiving or welcoming, all of that, they're more willing to listen to the good things and ignore the bad, right? That's part of the pattern. And the bad is, in fact, far worse than we can recognize, I think, for the most part, at least far worse than the good people recognize, because they're just not looking for it. They're looking for that signal. Now, I think that there is something we can work on, like a structure that we can develop where collectively we come together and figure out how to deal with these problems. Oh, Mark. Oh, Mark. Yeah, Mark, we need to have a talk again too. Tolerance
So
is a
what's the
problem.
difference between Claire and Mark?
Not much of one. Claire's more intellectual than Mark. Can I be abrasive in that way? Claire's read more than Mark, but there's not much of a difference. And I'm saying that having observed Mark in multiple communities and having spoken with him directly and spoken with lots of people that have interacted with him, as well as the Rebecki Foundation, and like all the ways in which these things have been playing out in the background. So, Mark, I'm happy to talk with you. It doesn't have to be public if you don't want it to be, but these behaviors have got to be taken care of because they're preventing the unification that lots of other people are wanting to participate in. They're preventing the growth and development of actual community. Right? It's just part of the problem that we have to wrestle with.
So I'll say I actually was very, very suspicious of Mark. And it was the fact that he showed up at Thunder Bay, the fact that Sally Joe and Joey trust him, that makes me vicariously trust him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's the implicit way in which we ordinarily develop these kind of trust circles. Right. And this is why I wanted to talk with Paul about this, because when he says, I had her on and I spoke with her and I found her to be lovely, that most people are using him as a metric, like as a guide. They're saying, okay, well, Paul has now named her to be this lovely creature. So that's the baseline that they're kind of start with, right?
Which is why she was so good with Paul.
Correct. Yeah. And she will go back and forth between like hate and vitriol, like intense vitriol, saying that people should die, right? And that they're morons and idiots and all whatever she can to get a rise, to, oh, thank you for inviting me in. And, really appreciate talking to you about these things. And, all the typical niceties.
There's a reason I keep on flashing this.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Because
that's real. Okay.
Yes. Oh, no. This is all of these.
All right. It all makes better sense, Jacob. Thank you.
All of these are pictures that Claire took while running for public office.
Yeah.
Okay, but I've never seen a picture of Mark Lefebvre with an assault rifle and a Nazi flag. So, yes.
Yeah, I do not think that Mark is employed by the CCP, which is what is the charge that I would lay on Claire. And I can say that without revealing some of the other behind the scenes stuff that I know. I don't think that Mark is like that in that sense. I think Mark has just, all right, I can I can make some speculations here, but Mark is engaging in similar types of behavior. His motivational states, I'm not certain about. I'm not certain about them. However, the behaviors are very similar. They're very similar. They're just narrowly located to like the topics that in the community that he happens to find himself in right now. Bridges of meaning.
This is how I distinguish between Mark and Claire, and I think is a good way of distinguishing between Mark and Claire.
Mm-hmm.
Claire obviously does not actually believe in secular Coranism.
Yeah, what does Mark believe in?
Mark actually believes in the things he says about navigating patterns, and he's actually
it's all very earnest.
Living your life according to what you say, right? This is my living room, and there's a picture of the Rebbe in my living room.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why the only good metric way I have found of removing people like Claire is you have to turn your video on, and I want to have the discussion on video with you. And the way I console myself about the idea that I don't know if she's an agent of the CCP. She may be an agent for many different things. I don't know who she's an agent for. But I know that this interaction is high enough cost to whoever is employing her that I am costing them many, many man hours for every hour they engage with me here.
Oh, well, yeah, sort of. But that is a kind of strategic thing that you can think about in that way, or maybe even a tactical one. But I think it's completely undermined by the numbers game. Completely undermined. And this is why I wanted to talk with you about this, Jacob. This is about to be so much worse. Now, the video thing is important. In the past, that's actually helped quite a bit. But pretty soon, you're going to be able to talk with like fully functional AIs that can replicate low quality resolution video and speech so perfectly, the vast majority of people are going to be unable to discern. So like that is that we're going to have a really serious problem discerning people. And so
that'll be one benefit of meat space interaction.
Yes. Well, that's where we want to get to ultimately, right? Ultimately, we want to get back to the material plane. We want everything to be grounded in reality. That's the idea. And how we get there. And let me just say this before I go, because I got to go. I want to say Claire Kaw is irredeemable in a sense. Like, I've watched her for many years now in multiple communities with lots of people give her airtime, forgiveness, second, third, fourth, 10th chances. They're always abused. It's always gotten worse. Irredeemable, right? So if God wants to redeem her, so be it, on his schedule. But in terms of the interactions that she's having here, they're all negative and poisonous. All right. And hold on. Mark, I don't want to put him in that category, right? I don't want to. I've sat back and I've watched, and I can tell you, like, there are vocal people that participate in this community, in this corner, whatever we're calling it, right? There are vocal people that participate. Some of them are okay with Mark, some of them aren't. But there's far more people who do not vocalize that they don't participate because of people like Mark. Okay, so his presence is actually excluding an enormous number of people that would actually participate if he weren't there. That's what they say to me. That's like, it's over and over again. Hey, I wouldn't feel
it's like a personality thing. Like, are we trying to gatekeep personalities? Like, if you're a little anxious and on the spectrum, you know?
No, not
like,
at all.
I'm just projecting things onto Mark, but that's like a cause for concern?
Yeah, of course it is. And you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I've, yeah. So
well, like, that's, if you're going to say that, then okay. I'm the new guy here, and I like how broad spectrum it is, and I like the embrace of the near chaos.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's yeah. So that's, in terms of just a conversational space on the internet, that's what the culture is. The dynamics are conversations that, you know, kind of create this excitement of exploration or combating concepts. So, like, there's a lot of excitement here especially for open-minded people, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who are participating in this who wish to do more than just that. That seed can't be nourished in the soil that currently exists as it does. That's what I'm pointing out. And I'm not trying to gatekeep personalities, not at all. I'm saying there are actual consequences to the way that we do, like when we come together and how we treat each other. And we have to recognize those. And if you keep doing the same things over and over again, and people report to you that these negative consequences are occurring because of your behavior, and you're completely unwilling to change any of it, that's an issue. That's an actual issue. And it has to be dealt with. Like, it can't just be left alone, because it seems to cause more and more discontent, more disunity. And the people who are able to navigate that pattern are fine, right? But the people who aren't, so this is, and I'm going to say this, it's wolves in sheep's clothing, okay? The people who aren't are led astray. The people who aren't are stuck, unable to figure out how to discern, because they're relying upon someone outside of them to help them make sense of something that they can't quite see on the whole.
Well, but that's part of the role of a pastor.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not trying to. There are no pastors here, right? In that sense.
Okay.
Well,
Matt.
Yeah, Paul, you go.
You know, I appreciate what Tyler has to say, and I appreciate, if you read Jonathan Haidt's book, Happiness Hypothesis, he makes a really good defense of gossip, which, of course, is a little difficult in a Christian community because The Apostle Paul has some pretty difficult things to say about gossip, but Haidt makes a strong point in that part of what we do as human beings is we sort of populate a relational network with each other, and we tell stories on each other, and that's the whole reason we have reputations. It becomes sort of a relational economy that we all participate in. And so part of the difficulty that we have with these internet communities is that, number one, our contact with each other is so thin, especially if it's on screens. Unlike, let's say, a church, where patterns emerge much more quickly if you're living in real life with people. And churches have financial dynamics, so you see money patterns, you see all sorts of things together. And so it's very easy for we have no idea what we're doing with these online communities right now. I'll say that, which is why, again, I think it's really important to try to have a bias to continue to keep pushing people into more physical spaces rather than just online. Online has its importance.
I think that's part of it.
And I've got absolutely no question that there are individuals out there who inhabit social spaces they want attention, they want to cause chaos. I mean, you see this in meat space all the time in churches. And they come into churches. The thing is, within a church, everybody sort of figures it out quicker because there's just way more data. There's just way more bandwidth in real life. So part of why I have always sort of resisted sort of a centralization is because on one hand, a centralization is helpful because you can, let's say the centralized organization can tag a bad actor and exclude them, and the overall community won't have to deal with that. It's basically a waste of time. This person is wasting everybody's time. At the same time, also, as we know, centralized organizations have the danger of control, tyranny, all of those things.
Yeah.
And so part of
Paul, can I just squeeze in real quick? I'm not suggesting we centralize it. That's not my suggestion.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying you are. What I'm saying is that what's nice about a decentralized sort of what we have, which is an ecosystem, is that there tends to be a very subtle upvoting and downvoting along the way. And whether or not someone has bad intent or a personality that isn't tremendously winsome, or a way of being that people don't find helpful, in more of a decentralized economy, those things tend to suss their way out. And I think, generally speaking, sort of are managed well. So I appreciate hearing what you have to say about Claire. And, and I listen to people talk about people, but I'll just say that I always do it sort of with all of my experience in a church, because this is what churches are made of. And I take that information and I use it to sort of weigh things.
Yeah, so that's wise, right? So because gossip is of course filtered through all of the biases of the people that hold that information, and so in a sense, we do have some wisdom that we've gathered over time with regards to being wary of gossip, right? And you point to that, the presence of that, at least in the New Testament. And I think that's wise. So, but there are more dynamics at play here than just that. I mean, we're talking about sophisticated actors that have at their goal and their aim and their experience the desire to destroy people coming together in communities. That's their aim. Like, that's their actual telos.
Okay. Could you distinguish Mark from Claire just a little bit more? Could you like? I really hope are they really in the same pot?
Let me say it this way. I'll say it this way, and I really have to go. And I'll try to hop back on if you guys are still going after I drop them off. I think Mark is necessary. I want Mark to be a part of the conversation, and I also think Claire is necessary. That she exists. That we know that is real. That's happening. But what needs to compensate for that is our awareness and understanding of the implications and how we're responding to it. And not just in terms of like the surface level discussions that we're all seeing happen in Zoom or StreamYard or whatever, but the stuff that's happening underneath and all the stuff that's going on that we're not really capturing. And part of the thing that we can improve on, Paul, and this is the way that we help you with regards to you being a broadcast, not a centralized broadcast, but like a handful of people that we rely upon to be like, you're like a funnel, right? People just send you all of this information, and then you take the wisdom that you have from being a pastor and all that, and then you say, okay, this, and that is necessary. It's necessary. And I think what we have to do is fill the gap between that kind of veiled background that nobody ever really brings into this foreground here, and the top that's providing that broadcast kind of funneling thing, and fill that middle gap with people that are able to like relay the proper information. We have to create the gossip chain, and then dutifully make sure that we're not gossiping things that are untrue. So we have to clean up the signal, right?
And the gossip content is not doctrinal, because the whole thing that's appealing about this estuary is that nobody has the same, like there's no belief that's been replicated twice amongst everyone around here. So we're just saying it's personality based. Like you have to be agreeable. Like in that.
The explosion of Dutch Calvinism that's happened because of the.
You see how agreeable.
I just doubled the Calvinists on the stream by showing up. So
I am
in this whole community,
the most agreeable person. It's not about being agreeable or not. It really isn't.
Yeah, that's not it.
It's about your telos deliberately trying to destroy the conversation as opposed to have one.
Yeah, I think and let me just Mark should be a paid troll, but paid by us. Can I say that? Can I say it that way?
Yeah, we can patronize him in that sense.
Control us because he's good at it. You see, he's good at it and he wants to be a part of it. But he's the way that he's interacting with people isn't properly being digested. And I'm saying that because I'm hearing from people that, aren't digesting it well. I'm sure everyone here is much more capable than many of the people that are like wanting to participate but can't at digesting his output. But I really do think that we can establish some patterns, structures, conversations that allow us to give Mark a positive benefit in the space for more people than just they already are. Because everyone here, I'm sure, is able to take his to take his friction and turn it into something useful. That's a value that we have perhaps in ourselves. But that's not something that everybody has. So how do we transform this space into something that's more fruitful and more productive? And that's the question that I'm asking, not just for myself, but for a lot of people that aren't able to come to these discussions and speak. So I got to go, and I'd love to continue this conversation and talk about what ideas you have or what you've noticed, other things. I've kind of been away from this corner of the corner for a little while, but it's dear to my heart. Okay. There's a lot of people here that I love, and there's a lot of wonderful stuff that's going to come from this place. So thank you, everyone.
Adios, Tyler.
Thanks,
Tyler.
Tyler.
Pleasure. Yeah.
See you, Paul.
Yeah, see ya. Thanks for explaining yourself.
Oh, and yeah, my ear and mouth are at your service.
Well, I'll say something for my friend Mark. I don't know. And people know me. I regularly hear I'm too nice. I regularly hear that from my friend Jacob, and many people, not many people, but some people tell me I'm too nice to Jacob too. And
and let's be clear, Mark in a few hours is going to be running his regular weekly live stream on my channel, not just Randoms United, but my personal channel.
Yeah.
And I have found Mark to be a very good ally in cutting through bullshit. And so
including through Claire's, right?
Including through Claire's.
And I learned a lot from Mark today on the live stream. Some of the points he made, I thought, yeah, that was a really good point. So I would love to see Mark.
We love you, Mark. We love you, Mark. But I have to say, Mark, if it's between
we stand Mark.
If it's between Tyler and Mark, Tyler's got my vote.
Well, and this is Yeah, and we don't need to choose from people. Like one thing I'll say.
Sometimes you do.
All right, Mark, some constructive criticism, and I give constructive criticism to help you be better and to help you stay included. A pattern that I've seen you, Mark, engage in that is less than healthy is finding someone in a community, oftentimes the person that community is somewhat centered around, and pointing the ways that they're wrong and that you're right as a way of attracting attention. And that I'm not saying that you can't that Vervaeke or Vanderklay or whoever and whatever the Discord is centered around them are beyond criticism, but a somewhat parasitical way of attracting attention by saying Paul Vanderklay has failed to make some distinction XYZ, and so therefore everything he says is wrong, and listen to me to help you sort that out. That's a somewhat destructive pattern that I've seen you engage in, Mark, and I've noticed you starting to do it to me recently, and I've just been, I don't care about it, so please stop.
So the thing for me is, Mark says you will have to choose. Tyler won't have it any other way, and that's just not true. It's you who is saying that people need to choose. Like, I don't get along with Nate Kyle. This is not a secret. I don't make anybody choose between us. I would never make anybody choose between us. I don't try to destroy what Nate is doing. I would not do that. And when Nate did attack, I felt what I feel is important, I pushed back and I made clear boundaries. I was like, yeah, I will push back, right? But that's part of having boundaries, having concentric circles of actually, like, there's a reason why on my channel, on my Discord, there are people who are rank ordered. You can see very clearly how closely you are, as best as I can make clear, how closely you are allied to me and how far away you are. And that's because I think that sort of social signaling is really important. And having that sort of gradations of relationships is important.
Can I introduce another monkey wrench in this? Just for the purposes, this is on topic, but what do we think about the Holy Fool in this scenario? What do we think about Grim Grizz? Evidently, there are people who are uncomfortable with him.
Why are people?
Is he not agreeable enough for this estuary TLC movement?
He's a salty character, and if I were like picking seats in a bar to sit next to, and he was at one of the seats, and I didn't know who he was, I might pick the other side of the bar. But I don't have any personal beef with him. I went on his channel, and I find his personality so different from mine that I struggle to engage with it fully. But that's no criticism of him. That's as much a criticism of me as it is of him.
So
I don't know what the problem is with Grim. What's the problem?
Something I said, which
some people don't understand him. So,
something I said, which he himself seemed to misunderstand. I said you will always be a starving artist, Grim, and he is a shaman. He is somebody who stands apart, and I appreciate him for that. And I have to say, I feel in a very strong way that, just like a king who is a tyrant because he will not suffer his own fool, if somebody doesn't like Grim, that is plenty of reason for me not to like them.
I didn't want to join this kingdom until I met the Fool, and once I met the Fool, I realized it was a kingdom that I'd want to live within. So. How
did Grim find us? I don't even know the story on that. Is it the usual Peterson to Vanderklay pipeline?
Remember Mercury?
Yes.
Remember even before Mercury, the Sorting Myself Out channel?
Yes.
That's where he came through.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And all the way through there. So he's the Sorting Myself Out channel got passed on to Mercury and a couple other guys. He was in there, and then that's how it came through here. But,
Yes.
you know, again, let me say, as a pastor, this is all the time. And in churches, it's much more fierce because it's so easy. If you want to avoid Mark or Grimm on the internet, it's super easy. And part of the reason that I hear about everybody's little disagreements and non-alignments is because I do have a lot of you on my channel. So then I'll get little hints from people that, yeah, Mark on your channel, Grim Grizz, and other people will raise issues with Grim. One of the things that people raise with Grim is Grim Grizz is not his real name assigned to him at birth. And some people have a problem with that. So, and that's fine. And other people have had little, I'd say it in Spanish because it's a better word for it, choques with each other, you know, and I'm not going to name the names, but some of these people are, you know, sort of second level in this little corner, and they have their own channels and they have their own platforms and all of that. And they have choques with each other, just like Nate and Jacob or Anselman. I mean, Anselman's had running, you know, Anselman will tell you exactly what he thinks of most of you.
Paul,
from time to time.
Anselman is different because he is loudly ignorant.
Oh, Anselman knows a lot about a lot of things.
He is very, very loudly ignorant.
You said that about Paul like a week ago, Jacob.
That's what he says about me too.
My relationship with Anselman, I'm very proud of.
No, that's right. I'm not ignorant. I'm what are some of the things I am?
There might have been another qualifier to the ignorance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I am.
There's a different kind of ignorance.
So Paul sometimes is oblivious. Like when he talked about how Christians are more moral than Jews and Muslims, it was like, oh, I see.
Wait, he wouldn't say that. As a Calvinist, I can't see him saying that.
Anyway,
He's not Calvinist.
Yeah. We don't have to.
People have difficulty getting along. True. There are bad actors who just really enjoy destroying good things. True. And anybody who knows me also knows that, and I get this from my father, I will go a long ways even with bad actors. That's just what I do. Now, for me, the internet thing, because when I do that, I mean, I've lived for 12 years with a guy who had a restraining order, about this church. And I just let him in now because, I mean, this is the stuff I've always lived with. So that's, it's so funny because, people are like, once people get to know me, that's kind of, they know this about me. Does it help to build a little kingdom? Not really, because people bump into your bad actors, but I'll live with it.
One thing I will say, Jacob, that I think that you helped me appreciate. I remember when you were, I forget exactly which kerfuffle in your past this one was, but you were saying like, people actually do care about disrupting communities like this. I'm like, that sounds like a little bit of paranoia speaking, because paranoia often overinflates your own importance in someone else's eyes. Because most of the time people don't actually really care about you and don't have the time or resources or whatever to actually be spending that much time thinking about you. But you mentioned this earlier, Jacob, like that. So, and I read an article about it. The guy who leaked the recent batch of Ukraine and Russia documents was basically some 20-year-old punk who had some ortho bro Discord, who he kind of wanted to show off that he knew some inside stuff about the Ukraine war. And so he was sharing those documents there. And it caused this huge international geopolitical diplomatic firestorm. And it was because of a Discord in some ways not that different from ours. And that Harry Potter,
many such cases.
That Harry Potter podcast that we've all been listening to recently, it was also like, look, people drastically underestimated the importance of what Tumblr and 4chan and stuff like that in shaping all of the discourse on this sort of things. And those things originally started out as things not that different from the stuff like us. So part of me was like, oh, that might be one of those things that Jacob was at least a little bit more right on than I initially gave him credit for, is that there might be some reasons to care about these things to outside people to do enough weird things like pay Claire money to annoy us. And so...
Oh, you're thinking, so maybe Claire, you could see a scenario where a Claire or a Claire-like character could post in the Jacob's Ladder Discord content that gets it's on CNN a week later, and there's people being perp walked to to police vans. That okay.
Or like even like in like imagine that case of the guy who leaked the Russia-Ukraine stuff. Like, so probably this didn't happen, but I bet a lot of governments are like, wait a minute. So there are all these people with American security clearance who hang out on Discord, who are trying to impress their friends, who have access to these documents that I want access to. What if I just go in there, try and figure out who those people are, befriend them, and slowly, gently peer pressure them into leaking stuff? You know, okay, what if there are people in these Discords that work for corporations that I want to learn stuff about, and I want to pressure them into telling me stuff about quarterly earnings or IP or, you know, whatever,
Sam,
et cetera, et cetera.
Sam, this is the fact of there are 300 million Americans and 8 billion people, which means that every single American has outsized influence on the lives of people who really, really have a very vested interest in our political life.
Yes. Granted. And that is one thing that happens when you travel overseas, especially to poorer countries, is you realize what Americanness you bring with you and all of the weird things that go along with that. That's an interesting point, Jacob. Sam Adams is so insufferably smug. You know it.
Uh-oh. Was that in the chat?
Sorry, I just read a comment from the troll. I read a comment
that.
from the troll, but I couldn't help it. Oh, man.
Oh, I don't even look at her comments. Don't.
You know, maybe you need...
You have to realize she is a member of the bar in England. Do not think she is dumb. She is not. She is a member of the bar in England. She knows precisely what she's doing. And the number one reason I keep her around is so that people recognize that she's not dumb. She's not crazy.
So that leaves other options. That you're in your C.S. Lewis trilemma.
Well, see, this is, I mean, I think that's a false dichotomy. Like, I'm trying not to make her well, she actually does live in the UK. Yes, she is a member of the bar in England.
Yeah, not Scotland, not Ireland, England.
England. Yes. Oh, did I say British?
I don't know. Ginger Bill's pulling your chain, probably.
I thought I tried to be very clear, but she is a member of the bar, and she has not been disbarred, which I don't understand, because given her history in the United States, she would have been disbarred in the United States. And in England, they have a much stricter, like, she hasn't been prosecuted for these pictures, which is strange.
That is wild. I'm sorry. I laugh when I'm shocked, so I'm not endorsing. But that's insane.
Oh,
Claire.
Yeah, Claire is.
Claire, you'd make a very good Christian, Claire, if we could, if Paul Vander Clay can bring you to Christ. Like, use that zealotry for the light rather than for darkness. It'd be really interesting to see what you could do.
You heard it, Claire. We're gonna flip you.
Non-secular New Testamentism. Yeah.
Claire has.
There you go.
Claire has
With
been
an
at this
American,
for
with a South
over
Carolinian
decade.
characteristic.
South Carolinian characteristic.
She has been at this for over a decade, more than 24/7, as a very smart person, and she does not have a single convert.
Not even John?
And-
Well, I guess
and
John, if John's a Muslim or even an internet Muslim,
But he's
that's
not
even,
a secular Koranist.
No, he made that
That's true.
clear.
yeah.
So we got that all straightened out. We all
Got that all straightened out. Beyond
each other's butts, and we know what we're about.
Yeah, be on alert for bad actors, but don't be mean. And sometimes it's hard to tell. Because it's not like what? Jacob, you've probably had more people wanted you kicked off the Discord than almost anyone.
There's a reason I removed myself from Bridges of Meaning.
Mm-hmm.
No, seriously.
I talked about that yesterday with Joey and Jeff.
And
I said, Jacob never got kicked off the Discord server. I said, yeah, he left, but they were going to kick you out anyway. There's a certain quality to you, Jacob, and that's
look. I'm not trolling. I say things out loud that a lot of people are very uncomfortable, and I did not realize that the degree of tyranny. I'm sorry, but the degree of tyranny that exists in churches. The ideological tyranny in Protestant churches is shocking to me.
Come on, you come from, you've seen plenty of Jewish tyranny in their communities too. Weren't you the one that basically said most of these people wouldn't last a day in a Hasidic community?
What do you mean?
No, someone else told me that. I mean, almost any serious conservative, high intensity community is demanding. It's demanding of behavior. It's demanding of belief. It's you demand conformity.
And getting kicked out of a Hasidic Jewish community is no picnic.
It's no picnic, but it's very hard to do.
Or voluntarily leaving.
It's very, very hard to get kicked out of even Satmar. It is very, very hard. It is not something.
My own heart, because I have a hard time kicking people out of PBK's little friendship is really tough.
Paul, you are the most Catholic Protestant. I envy your Catholicism. You are the most Catholic Protestant I have ever met. You're like, this is my church. I am not leaving it. This is my father's church. This is my grandfather's church.
He's a confessional. People. That's what confessional Christians do. It's
he is the.
It's only one step out of Catholicism.
Catholic Protestants I have ever met.
We've outlasted poor Nehama's patience. There's so little patience right now. But see, and the beautiful thing is, I mean, if I had run away the first time Jacob fired me or talked about Paul of Tarsus or any of that, then I wouldn't have met Hezi and Hama and Yosef. And I mean, because one of the interesting things that I've learned over the years is that even people who are kind of hard to get along with, and even sometimes bad actors, they have relationships often with very interesting people too. And people are connected to other people, and we discover interesting people through other people. So Jacob's been interesting people.
We'll see if that Ahmadiyya Muslim guy shows up again. He came here through Claire. Yeah, he came here through Claire. I mean, he was pretty.
And John's interesting too in his own way.
So this is one of the reasons I monitor Claire, is because she goes into communities like ours and tries to destroy things. And so a lot of the people she actually talks with are really nice and good people.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
She seeks out communities like this to destroy.
And, we are doing a service to the rest of those vulnerable communities because we're taking up all of her attention right now. And she's not able to pray on other communities. So we're doing the world a service.
Yeah. I hate to tell you this, Paul. She is right now on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, Signal, and several other places simultaneously, She is online more than 24/7.
Well, and she's sending all her best to us, and they're becoming our friends.
Well, there's a reason why she has so many of like a lot of her regulars are in the chat and watching right now, is because my videos explaining who she is, who is Claire Kaw, is one of my more popular videos because it's helping a lot of people know who Claire is. And I think that's really caught her attention, is that as opposed to just blocking her, I have very deliberately been trying to expose her.
Oh man, we got a friend with
Paul. I removed Paul.
That's probably wise.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when are we going to fix allegorical interpretation?
Oh. Well,
hey, here, Jacob, listen to this quote from Origen. You'll like it. Who is so foolish as to believe that God, after the manner of a husbandman, planted a paradise in Eden eastward and placed in it a tree of life, visible and palpable, so that one tasting of the fruit by his bodily teeth obtained life. One, and again, that one was a partaker of good and evil by masticating on what was taken from the tree. And if God is said to walk in the garden in the evening and Adam to hide himself under a tree, I do not suppose that anyone doubts that these things figuratively indicate certain mysteries, the history having taken place in appearance and not literally.
I do not like this.
All right, why not?
Because I think that in fact there was Adam and Eve, and I do think that I do take literally.
Was there a tree that you could masticate on?
Yes.
Chew?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So how would chewing?
What's wrong with that?
Why are you allegorizing? Now, if somehow we were to come, so this is actually a discussion I've been having a lot, which is I take the Torah and Revelation and I try to understand it as best as I can, unadulterated with anything scientific and empirical and that, right? And then I take what is empirical and try to understand it, what is rational and empirical, as best as I can, unadulterated by revelation. And then only when there is a practical difference, and this is the halachic method, we only do this when there is a practical halachic difference, do we then take the two and try to come up with a way of synthesizing them in the practical real world.
What's the between the two? What's the difference between?
Between what is revelation and what is reason and reason and scientific. The dual magisteria of the.
So why is the water in Genesis 1:2 not H2O, but this tree that's just on the next page is a real tree with bark and leaves and fruit?
Well, partially because the light was the first thing that was created. It's like nothing physical existed before God started creating.
So what does the word waters there mean? Just like chaotic potential or something like that?
Something like that. I mean, the word water is used in many different ways throughout the Bible. And you have to realize that, okay, Genesis 1 may be one of the most poetic texts in the entirety of the Bible, right? The letter Gimel shows up only a few times in the entire chapter, because Hebrew thing is by alliteration. I think like the first time it shows up is in the 6th. So there's only 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. like there's one sound that's almost completely missing, right? Because it is very, very, and Shamayim means heaven, Mayim means water. So like this interplay between Mayim and Shamayim, like is just over and over again, right? And so it is to take that literally, and the reason I use that as what I would say the quintessential example of bad literalism is because within the Jewish tradition, it is perfectly clear that to say that it was physical water in Genesis 1 is just a non-starter.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know. I forgot where I was going.
So when are you starting your church? Oh, there.
When am I
back?
Is Paul back?
Yeah, we took you off.
When am I starting
or maybe
my church?
He left.
He's kind of frozen.
Yeah, I think. Oh, there he is. Yeah, I took you off because you had a congregant in the back. So Paul, what do you think about the water in Genesis 1:2? Getting him into all kinds of trouble?
No comment. I mean,
you're an expounder of the word, Paul. There are 33 people listening to you, and you refuse to expound on Genesis 1:2.
I feel like the clown. I feel like the clown running into the city saying that the circus is on fire. That's, you know, I agree with Sam that a big part of what has to come as Christian. I mean, basically what we're dealing with is the modernist fundamentalist impasse, which you can address it in terms of questions that we're really digging into in this little corner with respect to cognitive science. How do we describe the world? What does that look like? And so I can very much understand your point, Jacob, that how can you have, I mean, these points have been made about Genesis 1 forever. Let there be light, but there isn't a sun yet. I mean, people have been making these points about sequence and source, and they all tend to be mostly projections of our imagination based on the world, you know, something to that degree. And you just sort of betray the way language works. And then you get into the question of how, I mean, Tom Holland had a little string on Twitter about, you know, the past is a foreign country. We can say it that way. When you read, if you do sufficient reading in history, you begin to realize that this whole game of having a GoPro on you, and I mean, your conversation with Chezi was very interesting. And I've been parts of those kind of conversations forever after the modernist fundamentalist fight. And I think we're getting to the point to realize that, you know, that the GoPro doesn't actually tell you anything without an interpreter. That's sort of the point of the cognitive science revolution that's going on. And
what can a GoPro tell you about God?
Yeah.
Which seems important to know about. So how do we know about God if a GoPro can't film it?
Right. And that gets into the whole question about, you know, God as a super thing in the sky versus, I mean, the truth is, and this is completely in accordance with Calvinist theology, we have no adequate language to describe God. We certainly use language to try to describe God, but everything we use will fall short. And this has been consistent within Christianity for a very long time, and it's probably just inherited from you guys. So,
well, okay. So I have to say, when
of course you have to.
When one of the things that actually like drove me nuts and still does is 1 Corinthians 9, when Paul says, does God care about animals?
Does God care about who?
Animals.
Oh, well, that's in the book of Jonah. It's in the book
Well,
of Genesis.
What? Where?
He says, is it oxen God is concerned about? I mean,
yes.
He's alerting to us the fact that there's a spiritual. This is actually an example that Origen gives a soul interpretation, where you take a passage and get a moral lesson and apply the moral lesson to your own setting.
By nullifying,
which is exactly
by nullifying the underlying real lesson, which includes God cares about animals. Please see Jonah chapter 4, where God makes it explicit that God cares about animals. And Paul, not coming from a Jewish background, didn't understand that.
Well, there's this guy, Jesus, that you might like better in that case, where he talks about how God takes care of and feeds even the sparrows.
Yes. And the Apostle Paul is not our Lord and Savior.
Amen.
Well, that brings up inerrancy questions. I wasn't going to go quite that far.
Anyway, I should probably...
Yeah, I should go too. I should send some last Friday afternoon emails of work and stuff like that, and have a good weekend, people.
We have a congregational meeting and I have to report on how much money's come in for the parking lot, because we're getting close to having to do the parking lot.
Has that been going well? Has that met your expectations, or?
Oh, it exceeded my expectations, but that wasn't hard.
When you get 2 challenge grants, and I said this to Moises, if when you get 2 challenge grants of $10,000, that's already telling you something that I don't think most people are aware of, which is that you have funders in the back who are wondering where your congregation wants to lead you.
Well, basically, yeah. So we'll I'm sure the congregation will approve the resurfacing of the parking lot, and life will continue forward here at Living Stones. We're getting a new copier next week, signing a new lease on it. It's like not closing yet. So
your despite all your efforts, your church might not die.
I've been thinking it's going to be dying for 25 years now, and it just keeps with it. Don't know what to say. Love you guys.
All right.
Love you too, Paul.
Love you too, Paul.
Happy Eastern Orthodox Easter, everyone.
Happy last day of Passover was 2 days ago.
Was last night. Today is officially called Isru Chag, which is the last joys of the thing. Yeah.
All right. Happy that to everybody. Oh, whoops. I was about to click end broadcast. That's your prerogative. See you later.
That is my prerogative. Later. Okay. Now, if somebody else wants to come on to defend Claire or anything like it, they can. I will probably continue this as long as there are viewers until Mark's starting soon. When is Mark starting? When does your stream start, Mark? Mark just left. Mark's stream starts in a little over an hour. So. Yes, John, because when you say something as stupid as, I quote, Paul hates enforcing moral standards on anyone except as long as they believe in the Trinity. Yeah, that'll get you banned from my channel. David, I do want to talk to you, but it's getting close to Shabbos, and these 2 people get to speak first. But if after they're gone, I do want to speak to you, David. Go. Hey, Chad. Hey, Bill.
Hi, Bill. How you
Good.
doing?
It's been a while, Bill.
It has. It has.
I just woke up from like one of those naps that you're unsuspecting. You ever have those?
Yeah, I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
And then you're like, oh, I don't want to get up, but I got up. And then Anne just took Dolly and Rigsby to the dog park. It's Rigsby's first time to the dog park, so that's
nice, nice.
Yeah. How are you, Mr. Jacob?
I'm doing well. Yeah. My schoolwork is getting really grating because it's I call it right by numbers. Like it's they basically tell you where to put sentences where, and you do that, and they give you a grade for that, and it's just mind-numbingly stupid.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to wear the earbud anymore. Anyways. So what else is new, Mr. Jacob? And Bill, how's the new house coming along, Bill?
The house is coming along very well, thank you. Yeah. Just been doing the garden recently, so I've built myself an allotment, about an 18-foot long allotment, so it's pretty nice. Yeah.
Sweet.
How about yourself? Been up to much?
Not much. Just cleaned up the garage yesterday and took out some weeds and burned some cardboard, and that's about it.
Okay.
You look like a lobster that's about to say knee.
Me? Me?
Knee, as in the knights that say knee from Monty Python. You don't know that reference?
No. I don't watch a lot of Monty Python.
Oh, I thought you would love Monty Python.
I loved some of it, but I haven't watched a lot of it.
Life of Brian, I think you would really like.
I'm sure I'd like all of it. I just don't. I haven't dedicated the time to it.
Yeah. There's a significant library involved there. But a lovely hat, regardless.
There's like a whole thing that goes with it. But
ooh, nice.
Maybe I'll bring that to the Anachino 23 event.
Are you coming?
Heck yeah, dude.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, I am in Los Angeles. If anybody has questions about Los Angeles, anything like that, please let me know. I know the area. What?
May I use your shower?
Yes.
Nice.
So I am supposedly staying at the camp, but I'm gonna come home to shower and stuff. So if somebody wants to come with me, although I have to say my shower is really small, I have difficulty getting into it. I don't know if you're gonna have to
shower together.
No, but I have difficulty getting into it myself. I don't know if you're going to even be able to fit inside of it.
Bro.
What?
I'm a lobster.
You have a garden hose?
Of course I can fit into your shower.
Okay. So I would be more than glad to have you give your opinions about my bathroom because I need to get it remodeled.
Are you in a condo?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
I can definitely give you some pointers.
That would be great.
I don't know what pricing is like by you, but I can tell you what it would need.
So I honestly, part of the problem is I brought a contractor in, and it's just too small of a job for people to bother with. And so it's like the type of job that if somebody wasn't completely incompetent with their hands like I am, they would just do it themselves. There's a lot that needs to be done that can be easily done by somebody who like even knows how to swing a wrench, but I don't.
Are there limitations in the contract for the condo that would prevent an expansion of the bathroom?
No, but the condo is small enough. I'm not sure like it's really gonna be. It's not an expansion job. It's more things need to be replaced. It hasn't been remodeled in many years.
Right. Well, that's
pro
what
tip
about the if it's too small, you may have to kick it into the bedroom a little bit or something. Who knows?
Oh, no. Okay, so the shower, there's a tub next to the shower.
Oh.
So, yeah, and the tub doesn't have a shower. It's crazy how this is set up. Like, it's the waste of space in my bathroom is ridiculous, and like it just needs to be reconfigured. And
do you even need the bath itself?
No.
Right.
So you could just have literally a bigger shower, like a walk-in shower.
Yes,
like that'd
you
be fine.
could. Yes, you could. I would actually. I mean, I'm actually thinking. I like the walk-in tubs. You guys know the walk-in tubs?
Yeah.
I actually would like to do a walk-in tub, and they're not that expensive. I saw you can get even the high-end ones are like $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah, I've worked with them. I'm not a big fan of them because if you still want to shower, but it kind of ruins the shower experience. Raj, what's up? So like if you have the walk-in tub and then you also have a shower with it, it's not like a liberating shower, where you can I like showers. I brush my teeth in the shower. I want to stretch. Sometimes I might pray, so if you're in a walk-in tub, you can't do all of that.
You should do like a Southeast Asian shower where the entire bathroom is just one whole floor that leads to a single drain, and it's easy to clean. Maybe you have a bucket in the side instead of a tub. You get a ladle.
But why would you want a walk-in tub? Like why?
Because I love an actual tub experience, and I'm a pretty big guy. I'm not as big as Chad or any of the other guys here, but I'm big enough that a normal tub, like I can't get into a tub and be like in the water. I love an actual bath. And
this is the thing to me. Maybe it's just a bad experience, but the walk-in bit seems to me like but you have to fill it up first.
No. You get in, you close it, and it's actually a pretty limited space because you sit, right?
Yeah.
And it has its own heat engines and stuff. It's like a jacuzzi.
Yes. I'm with you now. I never realized that. I've only ever just seen them. I've never been in one, so I didn't realize how they work.
There are different models, but so I'm thinking of a walk-in tub. Yeah. It's all Raj's fault.
They're primarily for medical conversions. The thing is, again, once you have it, you might regret that you don't have the shower.
But you can. I mean, there's still a shower, and you can stand. I understand like the limitations you're talking about, but if you were to see my shower as it exists, a walk-in tub shower is luxurious compared to my shower as it exists.
I'm guessing that this is the first time in the history of the corner that we've ever discussed this type of thing.
Yeah.
Remodeling? Come on. We do that all the time.
I've been remodeling my entire house. That's what I've been talking about for a while.
Yeah, if you're swinging a wrench, you're using it wrong 99% of the time, by the way.
Wait, swinging a wrench?
That's what You've never heard of someone who can swing a wrench?
That's an American expression, Bill.
It's American expression. We call them spanners here, not wrenches.
Yeah.
Do they?
I learned that playing spanners? World of Warcraft. All the wrenches are called spanners in World of Warcraft.
Do they have left-handed spanners?
Left-handed spanner.
Yeah, they're sold right next to the squeegee sharpeners.
Yeah, squeegee sharpeners. Oh, it's like a left-handed hammer. I love them. They're the best.
It is. I was going to ask Jacob. Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I was just curious why Jacob was harping on the whole water in Genesis thing, and I was like, well, why couldn't it have been real water?
Well, that's because in Judaism, that particular instance, like I have, like all of rabbinic literature saying it is heretical to say that it was literal water.
Did they? I'm guessing they told you why.
Well, I mean, part of it is because the first creation was when God spoke and said, "Let there be light." So the first thing that was part of creation was light. And to say that there was literal physical water, right, is a denial of what the text is trying to tell you, which is God created light first.
Me.
We are the knights who say me, and so on and so forth. Yes. Okay. Totally unrelated to the water thing, but okay, that's interesting. I mean, I guess well, for starters, I haven't grown up in rabbinical Judaism, so
You haven't, Eric? I would have.
No, surprisingly.
This. I'm very surprised. Very surprised.
What the heck? I mean, just because I look very Jewish doesn't mean I grew up in it. So.
I wouldn't know. But no, I mean, but this may sound like a silly question, and I don't mean you don't take this as an insult. More of a, does it actually matter? As a question, and I don't mean that as a bad thing. I just mean that it may matter, but I'm like, does it matter too much to worry about it?
Right. Probably not to worry about precisely, other than to say that, I mean, like, there's a lot of things that we can get the nature of things as we can sort of understand them, but it's not the fullness of it, and that's to some extent assumed. But,
there is a degree of literalism to the Bible that destroys your capacity to actually understand the Bible.
Maybe. I don't think it destroys it, though, because my literalism is also tied to the fact that I'm understanding that I, as a human, have a limited capability to understand, even though it is pretty deep. But compared to other things and organisms and life forms and spiritual beings, even. But I mean, I assume that I have a somewhat stunted view, but it's sufficient for interacting with the Father to some extent, in so much as we're supposed to. I mean, I assume that we've been given that which we need to be righteous, mostly, except for the fact of our sinfulness that hinders and predisposes us to death, destruction, and disorder and whatnot.
Raj, you haven't said anything.
Yeah, speak, please.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm just listening right now.
Yeah.
Right.
What's up, Chad?
You're a beautiful son of a bitch, man.
Thanks, Chad. You're pretty beautiful yourself with your little lobster self.
You're coming to Chino too, Raj, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Dude, it's gonna be great.
Are you doing the camping
We're gonna have
thing?
a sing along. I gave a Grizz commercial for a sing along, so I'll be bringing a bunch of instruments along.
Oh wow!
Nice.
And so we're gonna have a good time.
Wait, does that mean Chad is a rock lobster?
Oh.
Yes.
He's definitely gonna be a rock lobster at the campground.
That'd be
You're gonna
amazing.
have to bring that, Chad.
I saw people are flying in from Europe.
Oh whoa!
Yeah, I saw.
Wow.
I'm not gonna.
That's not a cheap flight.
But
yeah, I heard Claire Call was coming. It's gonna be awesome, dude.
Yeah, there are definitely a bunch of people coming from Europe and stuff. So, yeah.
You made a video about this Claire person. I'm not in the loop about all of this.
Oh, should we talk about this Claire person?
You just missed the last God knows how long.
Well,
yeah, no, it's okay. Don't recap it. I'll just rewatch some stuff.
I am perfectly fine with recapping it, except people will think, oh, this is Jacob on his hobby horse talking about. I think it's an important discussion. I think it's a very important discussion because it's part of. So I mean, you haven't been on my Discord server, but my Discord server very explicitly is about what I call secured distributed cognition. So distributed cognition is how we distribute our thinking and really our souls to the people around us, right? And there's a level of insecurity and hacking that takes place on the internet, which is disturbing and is actually causing lots of problems, I believe, in society. And part of having a healthy community, which I hope our community is healthy and strong enough to withstand assaults by people like Claire, is there are people like Claire who are full-time employed, capable people. This is the thing. These are capable people who are full-time employed in the job of destroying communities like ours. And I sound paranoid when I say that, which is why I was so glad that Tyler agrees with me, because he's the first person who's like, yes, Jacob, what you're saying is what I'm saying. But this is something I've been trying to demonstrate to people in our corner, that yes, Claire Kaw is not crazy. She's not stupid. She is not some weird person that is incapable of acting in the real world. She is a competent person who for 10 years has been occupied full-time, more than full-time, in destroying conversations.
Well, and I mean, like, there's definitely bad actors like this in the world. Oh, go ahead, Chad.
And these pictures I keep on bringing up is to explain to you who Claire Kaw is. These pictures are like 10 years old when she was running for public office.
I mean, so like today, Chad?
So what, I guess what's your assertion? Like, what is she working towards? Do you think?
Destroying certain conversations among people she wants to destroy. I don't know why she wants to destroy. Like, there are many different people who may want this to happen. The
like
most
some people
likely,
that just want to watch the world burn, sort of thing.
No. So the most likely possible person who's employing her is actually the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. It may be some different intel agency from some different country. It may be private actors. It may be people with a political agenda. She may actually be a very competent postmodern activist. But what she is not is a stupid person who is bungling around and actually succeeding in sabotaging certain communities with certain political bents with her craziness.
Well, I heard, first of all, I don't mind when Paul talks with her, because I think he's skilled at talking with people that are problematic, and so it's good, I think, to okay, from our perspective or from our position, if there isn't our position, since we're not a cult, by the way, but I think it's good practice. And so, like, I was having a conversation with her today, and I didn't get sucked. You don't get sucked in. It's like, oh, you can see certain things are happening, and then it's like, oh, this is stupid games. But then again, I did hear somebody on the stream today, on Paul's stream today, who I thought for the first time, I thought, I'm not that big of an idiot. God.
I didn't hear what you said.
And
what
so, like,
you're cutting in and out.
I'm not crapping on that person. I just thought, wow, there are people who aren't very smart.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, so he was saying there are people who are. There was somebody who was saying something really stupid. Was that me?
I don't think so. But I will say that, I mean, it's worth bearing in mind that parable about the what is it, the gingerbread man that's trying to run away, and of course he can't be caught, and eventually he jumps onto a fox that offers to take him across the river, and he's sitting on the fox's head and swimming across, and eventually snip snip, there goes the gingerbread man. So it's not like there's plenty of very reasonable and in fact amicable and helpful interactions that can happen, but that's not to say that there's not potentially a gobbling that's going to happen later potentially. Not to say there is always either, but
well, I do have to say Claire, when she was on with Paul, was on her best behavior because she knows that, and this is the thing, she is a skillful operator. This is what bothers me so much about how people view her. People dismiss her as either crazy or stupid. She is neither. Sherry!
Hello.
Shelly. Nope. Just the symbol of Sherry, not the real Sherry.
So I'll be right back. I'm just getting myself a drink, some lemonade.
Ooh. But yeah. I don't know. I don't know enough
Can
about it.
you guys
I
hear
haven't
me
researched.
We can hear you, Sherry, yes.
Maybe. Are you knitting?
Sherry? I don't think she can hear us.
Hello.
Maybe not.
I'm
Hi.
in a really.
Hey, Sherry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
We're waiting for Sherry to say something, but Sherry is not being able to say things.
This is your captain speaking. We're waiting for Sherry to respond to the flight deck. Over.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. Who's crackling?
I think that's Chad.
Are you crackling? No, he's smoking, not crackling. Well, now there's just silence. Oh well.
Dead air. Anyway. This is bad programming, Jacob.
Who's paying for this? All right.
Well, I think the problem seems to be with Sherry's connection, not with the program. Yeah.
That's sad.
It is.
Anyway.
Okay. What I was saying before the CCP cut me off was so Jacob, you've actually caused a bit of confusion for people, myself included, in the past, right? Like when you started talking about Ben Yahoo,
Ben Yosef, yes.
Yeah, Ben Yosef. So like that was like that stretched me right to the limits, and so I could see how your concerns about Claire are concerning. I can see that. Because like I wouldn't say that I'm a stupid person, but I am an elastic person with attention problems. And so yeah, so if there are people like me around here who encounter strange ideas, stranger than their own, that are compelling, then yes. And now I imagine that there are a lot of people who do listen or make their way to this low corner who lean more towards the rationality or logic, because these are her holy words, the rationality and logic, things like this. But like when I'm listening to conversations about rationality and logic, I just go, duh. I think it's stupid, personally.
Right. It is stupid. You're not wrong, Chad.
I actually no. So Chad, I am not concerned about Claire in any way affecting you. I don't think she would. In fact, I am far more concerned when I speak about me being a bad influence on someone like you. And I'm serious about that.
Well, I wouldn't say it was a bad influence. I would say it was influential.
Well,
because what it did, though, is it had me pause and re-examine not what I believe, but I guess how I see things. Because, because like the miracle that was given to me, and was also something that was assuring to me when it happened was, it doesn't matter. Stop asking questions, Chad. Go live and love. Like that was the conversion experience I had. So really, it's anybody. It's not just you. It could be anybody. When they really, this is why theology, I think, is dangerous for somebody like me, because it can very quickly separate me from God, which I think is interesting. And so I know that there are a lot of people. It's the scholastic tendency that we have, the didactic tendency that we have, the egoic knowing that we pursue, that is separating, I think.
So the thing is, Chad, like, there are times when I'm talking to people like Richard and Andrew, who they're young men grappling with, I mean, Richard, for example, is majoring in philosophy and psychology, right? And he really, really wants to understand and grapple with theological issues, right? And if I could turn a switch and be like, oh, I'm talking to Andrew and Richard and not Chad, there would be times when I would, like, if we were in the same room, all three of us, not necessarily going to have the same discussion that if I have with Andrew and Richard, if just the two of us are having the discussion, right?
Right. So for the argument for Claire being here is what I have experienced is being able to sit in these discussions that are difficult has sharpened me. So that's my argument for it. So that's the point I'm trying to make, because I'm not thinking all y'all need to stop talking theology, because that would just be super self-centered of me. Plus,
they need to. You're right, Chad. They need to.
Right.
Look, if you.
And ironically, many people just need to. They just need to stop.
Well, no. See, that's the thing.
Not saying everyone. I'm not saying everyone. Not even you guys. It's just some people just. Well, it's not healthy for them.
Some people, yes, some people need to stop because it is unhealthy for themselves.
Yeah.
Yes. There are plenty of people. I can think of a few people that I've been saying, you need a girlfriend and you need to stop spending so much time on theology. I've said that to actually several people. Like, go find yourself a girlfriend. Stop arguing about theology on the internet. And it's perfectly true for some people. But the concern with Claire is completely different. She exists to come into healthy communities like ours and destroy them. That is her full-time job as one of the smartest people I have ever encountered, and I have spoken to some of the smartest people on earth. She is one of the smartest people on earth. She's not incompetent. She is a trained attorney who spends full time for the past 10 years, not by herself alone, has been destroying communities and conversations.
Well, I think I would say that if a community can't withstand the likes of Claire Kaw, then maybe they shouldn't exist.
I completely disagree, because I have been part of several communities, and the internet, well, in real life, a community wouldn't have the problems that Claire causes, but on the internet, she is endemic. And part of what I am trying to do in this community is help form a community that is actually immune. Like, I could have just blocked her and ignored her like everybody else does, right? But I am trying to form a community that is immune to people like Claire. And I don't have all the answers. I'm not sure I have any answers. I have some hopes and to say, okay, there are things we can do. And I think actually identifying her, there's a reason why I am having this discussion continually, why I keep on bringing her up. Speaking of people who I have told, stop with the theology and go find yourself a girlfriend.
Are we still crackling?
A little bit.
Something's crackling.
Yeah, it's chat. It's your microphone, chat.
No.
So yeah,
Rick
it is you.
Weird.
Yeah, it's mechanical KB according to Rick. I'm not sure what KB stands for.
Keyboard.
Keyboard.
Mechanical keyboard.
I don't think anybody's got the mechanical keyboard who's typing in it. I've got one here, but I'm not typing on it.
It's the CCP. Duh.
Duh.
Hey, by the way, does this mask make me look fat?
No, it's very slimming.
I don't know.
It really defines your eyes, mouth, your nose.
That they're the most sensual part.
Yeah.
The eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have to say, in 23 minutes, I'm gonna end the stream because Mark's stream starts 15 minutes after.
Dude, who cares about that guy? Raj, what do you think about this whole?
I don't know, but I just got busted by my wife, so I better get out of here before she gets mad.
Give her my best.
I will. Tell her, always a pleasure. Sorry I couldn't stay longer.
What's up, Ken?
Raj, how do you suppose we hint? There goes the CCPs. You see? Now we don't crackle. So, how do you suppose we handle this situation? And is it possible to have a defense or build a defense against the dark arts if they aren't present?
Yeah, so like my instinct would be to remove the person, right? I am curious, like Jacob keeps talking about wanting to keep her around in order to expose her so she's not, so that we develop an immunity as, right? That's one aspect.
Claire is the vaccine.
Right. But how do you develop the immunity, I guess? Because like part of being, you're going to have to suffer some level of infection, right? So does that mean sacrificing
this is kind of thing with, I would have personally just said remove her. Literally physically distance you from her from entirely. I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just I would have instinctually just gone, get rid of her straight away. Like this person, no, just go.
No, and I understand
she's
that
causing those kinds of problems.
But she also is the one where I have the most capacity to obviously inoculate people against her. Right?
But does the inoculation against her, is the vaccine good enough for the next person, or are we going to keep needing boosters?
Good question. No, okay. I would like to develop some sort of protocol, and this type of chat is actually has been part of that, because it's video on chat with people who I'm getting to know people, and part of that has been my road trips, actually going and meeting people, right, in meet space, right? Like
meet space. I believe that. Sorry, it's just the phrase makes me laugh.
Why don't you like meet space? It is true.
It's so hot.
No, I know. Oh God. Oh. No. In the more sense, I just think it's just like, really is a term. That's all I'm just gonna say.
In space.
It's better than saying real life.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like on a different universe, like on a different realm, a different dimension. They have it's like 2004, and instead of MySpace, they have MeetSpace, but it's actually like Tinder, and you have to make your own website. Do you remember? And then like you had to build your own website, and you had to wait for it to load, and so you had to wait for your Meet package to load on the MeetSpace MySpace website. Never mind. It's just see, you guys let me in. I probably have caused more problems than Claire Caw has caused.
I'm just this is fun. Sorry.
So then this protocol, like, what is? I don't understand. Is there a process in which we notice someone is disrupting the community, and then people are sort of charged with investigating that person? I'm just. What are the steps that need to be taken in order to discover a person?
Okay, so I have actually started doing this in the Los Angeles area with Richard and Andrew, because Richard and Andrew are in Los Angeles, and I've kind of deputized them with I've gotten to a point where it used to be I could, anybody who wanted to talk to me, I could talk to them. I had plenty of time. Now people come and talk to me, and like I don't even remember who they are because I'm talking to so many people, right? And so I've deputized Andrew and Richard with, okay, you see this person? This is a person I don't have time to get to know and actually see if this is a genuine person or not. I trust you guys enough that I want you to actually go, hey, you're interested in talking to Jacob. What exactly are you interested in talking to Jacob about, right? And to some extent, I think we have to have that sort of relationship with the higher status members of our community. There are people I've spoken to, and I've been like, hey, Paul, I really think you should talk to X, Y, and Z, right? And he doesn't always talk to them, but he often does. And I would never, ever say, you need to talk to Claire. Right? That's not going to happen because I don't want his attention on somebody like Claire.
So is the question. So is the only way to keep a space like this healthy, does it necessarily involves physical interactions in Meet Space?
No, but I would say the Jethro protocol, I've been calling it the Jethro Project. So Jethro is Moses' father-in-law, and he says to Moses, you can't handle all of this yourself. You need to create leaders of tens, leaders of thousands, elders, then you, and be able to trust these people to bring things up the hierarchy. And it requires people willing to be at the bottom of the hierarchy and be like, I am a leader of tens. I am going to get to know 10 people in this community well. And if that person has an issue that needs to be kicked out up the hierarchy, I am going to make it my business to go up to the next person up in the hierarchy and move that issue up and down so that we can have a hierarchy that is more than just a Protestant home church.
So if I want to move up faster, could I just pay a Jethro toll?
Yeah, only if you get to do the weird leg kick when you're playing the flute. That's all right. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I can't do it on this camera. Sorry, that's probably just some random references only like a few people here get. Sorry, it's just me, Chad. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. What were you going?
I don't know. I just got to Jethro at all. This is great. Rick got it. Finally, Rick got it.
Oh, lots of people are laughing in the thing, in the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I should probably go take a shower and brush my teeth because I have motor breath.
Oh.
That's another Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
I didn't get it.
I gotta go meet Cross-Eyed Mary, but again, Jethro.
Okay.
So.
What are you guys referring to that I'm not getting?
You don't know any Jethro Tull songs, do you?
No.
That's all I have to say. I'm like, all I'm going to say is to you is type in Jethro Tull and write flute solo.
Jethro
Tull.
Tull. T-O-L-L. So I'm doing English accent
Jethro
then. Yeah.
Tull flute solo.
Solo. That's all. If that's your intro, you'll be. That's what I mean. That's why I was doing the leg kick as the joke.
I found it. It's from 7/31/1976 at Madison Garden.
Any of them, dude.
Okay.
I think it's Ian Ashbury, right? Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Total classic.
That's what I mean. If that's your intro to Jethro Tull, that's all you need.
Jacob is thick as a brick.
Dude, what a classic. Dude, Locomotive Breath, total classic. Speaking of total classics, today the new Metallica just dropped. And I gotta say, I give it like a 7 out of a 10. It's pretty good, man.
Okay, Ethan claims to like music. He claims to like music.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I tell him like post music in the music channel I have on my Discord server, never does.
Mm-hmm.
Always says he's going to introduce me to music, never does. His wife is literally begging him to take his guitar out of the closet and play some music. He never does. But now he's telling me he's going to introduce me to Tull.
Listen, Ethan, take the guitar
out
and straighten it up. And get it playing. All right. Anyways.
Chad.
Yeah.
You ever listen to punk music?
Not much. You know, the problem is I grew up on Eagles and Bad Company and the Guess Who records and Zeppelin. And then I discovered Metallica, you know, and that was great. But then after that, like 1997-ish, Korn started coming around. And I thought, where the hell are the guitar solos? This is bullshit. Because I love Pink Floyd. I'm a Dave Gilmour guy. And it's like...
Yeah.
And then, so I never could get into punk because I love guitar solos. And it was chaotic. But I have been exploring more chaotic music lately as far as just disjointed music. So like listening to like I've been on this Nick Cave kick lately. And, I'm only listening to his most recent stuff, and I am fascinated by it, dude. Lyrically, powerful. I'm a lyrics guy and a guitar solo guy, so
you should check out a band called Bad Religion.
Oh, Bad Religion! I've heard of them. Yes, I should.
Yeah, they have 2 really good albums, No Control, and then another one that's called Suffer.
Okay.
And a lot of on one of their albums, I think from the mid '90s, they actually have a song called Materialist, and how they are materialist, full-on realists. And there's some really interesting things in their lyrics that I always think about when thinking about this corner, this little TLC.
Yeah.
So
can I just say, bass solo? Are you idiot? It's not boring. Have you never heard of Yes, specifically Chris Squire?
Oh, dude.
Ethan says it's a bass, not a guitar. Basses are incredibly boring as solo instruments.
Dude,
no. You just don't know good songs. It sounds like what your problem is. Chris Squire, just one of the best bassists of all time. I've seen him live 5 times before he died. From the bassist from Yes.
Oh yeah, wow, beautiful.
So if you've ever heard like Rissy Roundabout and the
Yes.
bass in there, or oh my god, some of the stuff in that is just amazing.
Yeah, but dude,
And
you
if you
can't say that he can't say that bass solos suck. I mean, there's Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth is iconic. It doesn't suck.
Ethan, you can type in all caps all you want, but we've all decided you need to start playing for your wife. And you are doing something very wrong here by denying your wife your bass skills. I'm just telling you.
Back to Raj. So the closest thing I come to punk music was Coheed and Cambria. And so I really like their second and third record, and their fourth record is pretty decent. But they have a pretty great song because they had like it's like post-punk, but they can do like a 3-minute pop song, like with like a punk framework, to like a 10-minute progressive sound with like guitar solos, and the vocalist kind of sounds like Geddy Lee, and they're like their first 5 records tell one story. It's this cool concept, and I think it's kind of fun. But that's about as close as
what are they called again?
Coheed and Cambria.
Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to go to a Bible study. It's not going to be great. It's going to be average. No autodidacts there. A lot of average stuff, but it's good for me, and which will be good for you. So, much love.
See you, Jeff. Yeah.
So Mark started.
Again, I'm just a bit annoyed. Okay, I know you say I'm just a bit annoyed with the bass solo stuff. Like, he does not play solo. What do you mean played by on his own? Fine, but like, bass is great. What are you talking about? I'm not even a bassist, and I say it's great. So I'm just a little bit offended. That was all. It was just the.
Got to defend those basses, huh?
You got to defend them.
Ethan wants to jump on now. We finally got Ethan.
Oh.
I have no idea what.
Okay, what about if you want a solo bass? Victor Wooten is who you want. Really? Okay, come on. No one can disagree with Victor Wooten.
I honestly don't care. His wife is pregnant with his baby. She wants him to play the bass.
Yeah.
He needs to do it.
Exactly.
Man up.
Yeah.
You do what your pregnant wife tells you to. That's how it works. Like she's asking for music. Dude, bust out the bass, guitar,
Wooten is never too much.
Call it.
He's never too much, man. You got to listen. Yeah.
Now Paul's.
Oh no, Paul's here. Oh no. Oh, what do we do?
Paul, you have opinions on the bass?
Bass is great. And these roundabout, those bass solos, they're amazing.
Oh.
I can't believe Jacob never heard of Jethro Tull.
I thought my leg impression joke was a good enough one. Hello, Ethan.
Oh, okay. Chris Squire did not play solo bass. He was playing with other band members. Never did he play solo.
Okay, Victor Wooten then.
Boring.
You're echoing, Ethan.
Are you a bassist arguing against bassists?
Yes. Okay, Victor Wooten. The thing is, how many solo bass albums has Victor Wooten put out? 0.
Okay, what about Jacko?
Okay, Portrait of Tracy might be the only good solo bass song.
Okay, I've got to admit, it was
there
the one. That's all I needed.
Play that one.
Okay. You know what, Jacob? I actually just took my bass amp to a guy in Sacramento 2 weeks ago to have it fixed. So there's that.
Okay, I'm glad. Okay.
Hopefully, he didn't just. I've never met him before, and hopefully I hear back from him. So
he didn't just run off with your base.
He had lots of electronics in his garage, so I have a feeling that he's legit. So
I would, if you found him on Craigslist, I would wait at least a month before you contact him just to make sure he's still there a month after. But yeah.
So I met this guy in Walker, California, which is a tiny little town in the Eastern Sierras. Paul probably is.
We went through Walker, didn't we?
We went around Walker because there was an avalanche.
Okay.
So we had to go around it. We would have. He referred me to a guy in Sacramento. I met that guy once. He referred me to a guy in Sacramento, and then that guy referred me to another guy in Sacramento. So.
Okay, so it's referrals all the way down. It's fine. It's not like Claire Call at all.
Here's the thing about you said my wife wants me to start playing again, and I don't think she really does, because what that means is I'm going to start playing with people, which means I'm going to be out late on the weekends. And
no, I never said she wants you to start playing again. I said she wants you to play for her.
You can't just play. You can't serenade people with bass. Sorry, dude.
Not with that attitude, you can't.
Not with that attitude, you can't.
I don't think
when there's a will, there's a way. And the subtle tones of the bass.
Is it really that hard to transfer the skills to the piano you have, or get a freaking guitar and play for your wife and baby, you silly man?
Piano, yes. But you can.
I love it when Jacob gives marriage advice.
Okay, I've already tried the piano thing, and I couldn't find a good teacher that would teach me on the weekend. So there's that.
My piano teacher, he was an organist. He was a Baptist organist, and he was a really good teacher. But like, piano wasn't his main thing, and I used to play hymns with him all the time. So if you can find someone like that, I highly recommend like that.
Hey, Paul, don't you need a piano player for your church on Sundays? So you can do that, Ethan. Go down, drive from Reno to Sacramento every Sunday.
Every week.
Right.
You can lead worship with the bass.
Yeah. I'll just come down there and play bass. How about that? Yeah. Then you'll learn how boring bass is real quick.
I have no clue. I don't even care. When I went and visited Ethan, he went to show me his bass, and things fell on him because he had not brought it down for so long. And I suggested he plays for his wife, and she said, "Yeah, you should do that, Ethan." And I was like, "Well, if she wants to hear it, I don't care what it sounds like." I don't.
All right, I'm going to do my rough draft, and then I'm going to make a video. So Grim has homeroom on Monday morning. He has something to talk about. So you guys are way too interesting. Distract me. Of course, anytime Ginger Bill is on a stream, I always want to jump on.
But
I'm so sorry. I'll just get up then. Don't worry, it's my fault.
Paul?
What's that?
You came to say something. What were you going to say? You haven't said anything.
You guys were talking about music I love, Jethro Tull and Yes, and all of these great bands from the 70s.
People I've never heard of.
No, you haven't heard of Jacob. That's about it, Jacob.
Raj has heard of these people. Haven't you heard?
I've heard of them.
See, Raj, who's gonna serenade the Chino group with hobo songs by the fire. That made me laugh hard. I'm
glad.
So anyway. Okay, so I really have to do my job.
I should
Bye.
actually end the stream soon because Mark's stream starts in 15 minutes. So if people have last words.
I'm going to go to bed. So good night, everybody. And I hope you have a nice sleep. If you're not sleeping, but your time zones, whatever.
We could end with an Ian Anderson flute solo.
We could.
All right. I got to go.
Okay.
See you guys.
Talk to you later.
I am camping Phlebas.
Be good.
Bye.
Raj, it's
Bye.
all you. Final words.
Open mic on my channel Tuesday, 7 p.m.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you? Oh, we should get you set up so you can do it on just chatting. Yeah, we should.
Yeah, we can do it on here.
We should talk about getting that set up because just don't set it. Don't have it against my my Bible studies on Wednesdays, not Tuesdays. Okay, that works.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll talk.
Yes, Raj has a channel. Drop the link, Raj. What's your channel? Let me find Raj's channel. I will put it into the chat because Raj, there it is. Here is a link to Raj's channel. There we go.
Cool.
Or actually, here's a better link, which Raj put in. And there we go. Are there any Sikh holidays around now?
Right now, today, actually, it's Vaisakhi, which is the establishment of the Khalsa. So I should probably make a video about the Khalsa.
Yeah, I want to do that, Raj. Most people have no idea what a Khalsa is.
Yeah, I had a couple of passages I was going to read. I don't feel prepared enough to talk about it extemporaneously.
Okay. I was actually surprised to find out the word Khalsa is Arabic, not Indo-Iranian. Yeah, I looked that up.
It comes. Yeah, it's Arabic. I saw that today too, actually.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And I tried to see, because I do want to have a talk with you about whether Sikhism qualifies as Noahide or not. And I think generally it does, but I was trying to look if there's any mention of Moses, and there isn't, although there's the mention of Kitab, right?
Yeah,
and
there's a mention of Adam.
There is. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a singular mention. I don't know if it's by one of the gurus or if it's by Sheikh Farid, who's the Muslim, the Sufi. But there are a couple of references to some things. There's the term Kitab, and I think you had someone on the channel, a Muslim fella, drop by, and he was talking about how in Islam there's the tradition of the Old Testament and I think they call it the Injil.
Right. So in Islam itself, there is.
And so some of those things cross over into, like, the gurus were privy to some of those discussions and some of those, because Guru Nanak was taught by a Muslim teacher for a while, as well as Hindu teachers.
Well, one reference in Guru Granth Sahib is obviously to a Jew. It's a critical one, but it's a critical one that I don't really disagree with. He talks about it. I think he's actually referring to the phylacteries on his head and saying you pray 3 times a day, which is a Jewish thing. And then he says, but you don't do the right things, which is like, yeah, you know what? If that's what you're doing, not a good thing. We should continue this conversation sometime, but I am going to end the broadcast, and happy whatever that day was.
Vaisakhi.
Okay.
Okay.